I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. If you're nothing without soup, then you shouldn't have it. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. And I
Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully, I've got everything working. Can you hear me, RJ?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Welcome. Yeah, perfect.
I'm so sorry.
Thank you for the private chat message because it's like I've done that so often. It's like, oh, for this time I didn't even realize I had to put the go live button. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Hey, everybody, welcome wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. I'm looking forward to this. Having a fellow YouTube commentator, comic creative, and podcaster is just fun. We had a bit of a laugh beforehand, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot of laugh during the show. So, without further ado, I'm based here in New Zealand from Marae, beautiful, wonderful Northland. Love my country, and I'm really proud of us being one of those countries that goes out into the world and people, I should say, pioneers that go all over the world. We love to travel, and one of the part of that for me is I love to talk to lots of different people from all around the world. And I want to welcome RJ from Critical Blast to New Zealand. So thank you for coming on. Tell us a bit about yourself, RJ.
Oh, I was born. No, I won't go that far back. I've been a geek my entire life. I learned to read off of comic books when I was 4 years old. Nobody knew it. Nobody knew that I could read. I didn't know that it was a thing. I thought everybody could. So, I kept it to myself. Comics were freely available everywhere because I was growing up in Sparta, Illinois, which during the 70s and 80s was where all the comic books in the world were published. So there was no comic store. They weren't sold in drugstores. The workers brought them home like day-old donuts at the end of the day, the print overruns and stuff. You could get them anywhere. And it wasn't until first grade that I was sitting in class. The teacher's bringing up these great big placards with the great big words on them, and she's reading them nice and slow because she's trying to teach everyone how to read. And I didn't know that's what she was trying to do. So I read it in my eyes, and then I started playing with a bug on the floor or tying my shoes again or something. Next thing I know, she's in my face. She's like, "Would you like to read to the class?" And I'm like, "Yes, please, because you're going so slow." And I just look at the cardboard sign she's got there. It said, "Plants generate energy through a process called photosynthesis, in which they absorb sunlight into chlorophyll cells." And it was like second grade reading class was the next thing happened the next day. I was like, but yeah, because the Flash just fought the Floronic Man, and that's how he operates. And Batman took down Poison Ivy by blocking the sun. And it's like comic books. That's where I got. I said, I can tell you about antimatter and matter a little bit. Just don't let them touch. It blows up the universe. But that wasn't the first grade subject, apparently. Collected, lost collections, collected again, lost collections, collected again. I'm not losing any more collections. This is, I don't have time to rebuild it anymore. DC guy almost all the time. Love Marvel, love DC, but I was raised on the Super Friends and the Justice League. So those are my guys.
It's funny you say like you learned how to read from comics, and you knew how to read at 4 before other people. Me, I was taught all the way up to high school to read, because coming from Fiji, English wasn't like your first language, right? So I'm like, I was taught by the lady across the street at about 9 years old. Mum, I don't know if mum paid or whatever, or what, I have no idea. I went to primary school. I was reading classes. I think no, during primary school, that's where I got to get taught how to read from my neighbor, my friend's mum. But then I went to boarding school, got taught how to read by the sisters, right? Special class, time to go. And then I went to intermediate again, and which is like about 11 years, 12 years old, right? And then got into high school special reading classes, and they gave me a love for books, right? Gave me a love for this stuff. And I mean, Sparta, man. Like, I didn't even know that's where like they printed all the books. So where is Sparta? Tell us a bit about that.
Sparta is in the southern portion of Illinois, which is about 40 miles from the Mississippi River. If you're looking at the map,
Oh,
wasn't
wow.
a whole lot going on there, but the printing plant employed so much of the town. You either worked at the printing plant or you worked in the coal mines. And you know, my dad worked in the coal mines, but he knew people who
Mine
were
too.
at the printing plant.
Yeah.
Did underground?
Yeah, Dad was in England. Like it's Father's Day, right? I just happy Father's Day to all dads around the world who are doing a good job, and for those who are not, why not, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, my dad's it's from England, right? He married my mom when I was about 9 or 8, but yeah, he was a coal miner, you know, and he got paid $3 grand. A couple of years ago, they had this whole thing about like the breathing and all that with the
Black lung.
whatever black lung, yeah. And so all of those guys who worked in the coal mines in England were paid £3 grand, £300, 3,000 pounds, which is around about 10ish grand New Zealand, which would be about how much? I don't you know, about
Yeah.
5,000 or something like US.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys will never be able to breathe right again. Here's a couple $1,000s.
yeah.
Doesn't seem quite fair, but
Yeah, but I think my dad missed out on the long term because him and his friend bailed. Like in the 60s, 70s, they went all over. You know, they said his friend said, "Hey, Alan, I'm thinking about going overseas to New Zealand. There's this, you know, they've got all this stuff going on, and man, like he's well traveled. He's been to Rarotonga, you know, Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, you know, England, of course, but he's traveled around the world and stuff like that. But he's now in his 80s. He's still good. You know, I kind of like go, well, you know, people on that, like you look at like Hulk Hogan the other week. I was listening, you know, the other day I was watching. He's in his 70s. He looks pumped up. But my dad hasn't been, you know, doing all this stuff. But he was like he worked in Meatworks. Like he came over here and got into Meatworks. He got a degree, and you know, there's things you would make, you know, like butchering that you have to know to like make sure that they're healthy. And so he's that guy who goes, "This is okay. Yep, that's fine to eat. Let's go on." So that he's that guy that makes sure that we don't eat bad.
has a little blue stamp that he can put on the.
That's the one.
Yeah.
So tell us about the, you know, what was it like growing up in that sort of town?
Believe it or not, it was in a town where all the comic books are printed. I was still a minority because I was the kid who read comics. I was like,
Wow.
they're everywhere, but nobody really cared about them. But for me, it was like it was job training. I was like, this is a viable career when I grow up, right? I can do this thing, be a superhero.
It's awesome, man. I'm like, yeah, to be able to have all that, be surrounded by all that, and you know, growing up as a child. I mean, I kind of like, for me, I'm like, I grew up reading Tintin and Asterix, and here I am, like in 50s, right? Like only the last probably, I guess, like when I had my accident, that's when I really seriously thought, what's the thing to write? What I need a career change. I can't stand on my feet. I can't go into filmmaking. So the only thing that you know, was like, I could just do comics, right? It's just me doing it, and I don't, you know, at that time, yeah, it was just like, rather than going and working with teams, right, on film sets and stuff like that, I could just be with myself and just create. And it was tough, but I mean, because you know, when you're outdoorsy person and suddenly you can't, you know, like for me, it was like, I can't do this, I can't do that. And we're talking about health issues like with lung and stuff like that. Did you have that in your family? Like, you know,
my grandfather. Yeah, I remember when I was very, very young. My grandfather had a oxygen tank next to him at all times because the black lung just made it difficult for him to breathe. And he died when I was like 6 or 7, so I don't remember a whole lot about him.
Yeah.
Everybody was in the coal mines, or everybody worked at the printing plant. There was one other place where people worked. The cake mix, they called it. It was the Sara Lee cake mix. which was
Right,
about 10 or 15 miles further out of town. But
right.
that was the other
So,
big center of nowhere industry.
so you're like myself, like coming from a small town with big factories,
Yeah.
and so that whole like economy is based around that. Like for us, it was dairy and milk and meat works. So you had like you had cheese and stuff like that. Like they like it like our the the dairy was the dairy factory was opposite, like right there, right, like about 5 meters away or 10 meters away from our primary school. So during lunchtime, we could just go across and get a piece of ham if we were hungry.
Oh,
They would just
nice.
slice it up. Yeah, it was just they had their shop there, and they just here kid, you know, and it was
Brilliant.
because it was like the lifeblood of that town. We were the richest town at that point because we had the two major things: dairy, which is New Zealand is known for, dairy and meat. Right, our lamb goes all over the world and stuff, and our dairy goes everywhere. You know, and you probably like any major supermarket would have a lamb from New Zealand, right? New Zealand lamb or New Zealand milk. Um, what was the like? I mean, was it same for you guys in your town? I mean, how big is Sparta?
Sparta was at that time about 5,000 people, and I lived in
Right.
one of the little communities just outside of it of 900 people. so, so my
Yeah.
town was actually super small. Um,
Right.
but everything you wanted to do was in Sparta. I remember when I went to high school, we went to so the little community was Tilden, and we went to
Right.
grade school there until eighth grade. But once it was high school, we were bused the 8 miles into town to go to the integrated high school there,
Right.
and it was then that we got the best thing to ever happen to that
Mm.
town in decades. We got a McDonald's. Oh my God.
Yeah.
That and the guy who took that franchise became one of the richest men in town, most
Yeah.
well-respected men in town. Is like, and his wife taught my biology class, so it was
Right.
like, he'd just been a veterinarian before then, which I think is kind of an unfortunate marriage of jobs if you're going to be the guy taking care of sick cats and then you're also going to be making hamburgers. Really,
Yeah.
but yeah, that was the big thing, and on the heels of McDonald's, Walmart. Oh,
Right.
Sparta became the mecca of Southern Illinois.
Plus, you had all that money from the coal mines, and you had all that money from Sarah Lee, and what was the other one you had? Of course, the comic books, right?
But all
You
that
had
money was
people.
like to the corporate heads. That wasn't being paid. That wasn't trickling down to the
Yeah.
people who worked there.
Yeah. I think it's for us. Like it was really like. Did Was there any time when that left? Right. Like for you guys, was there any time any of those factories left?
Uh, they didn't really leave, but I do remember, the coal mines, they're union jobs. So
Right.
every cycle or so, they're like, okay, we don't like our contract anymore. We're going to go on strike. And they
Yeah.
would go on strike until they got the contract they wanted, at which point
Mm.
they had lost enough money that the raise in the contract barely
Yeah.
made up for what they had lost on strike.
Yeah.
And the last strike I remember, uh, they resolved it. My dad was getting ready to go back to work, and somebody burned the one of the coal processing units, so they couldn't do anything until they got that
Mm.
repaired. So he was just flat out of a job. They just closed that one. Um,
Mm.
and he was about my age then, so it
Wow.
was career change. If I'm in IT,
Yeah.
if I lose an IT position, I'm going to go across the street or down the street or to the next town, and I'm going to work IT.
Yeah.
You're a coal miner all your life. That's all you know.
Yeah.
There's nowhere else to go. So, it was like total career training change. So he learned to drive a truck for a while.
Mm.
Wasn't for him. And I think he ended up at the aluminum plant doing
Okay.
some stuff there.
It's interesting. Like I was like talking about union and stuff, and I was talking to a gentleman like, gosh, last Sunday night, right? It was a graduation for for a friend of mine. She's for become an art teacher, like totally qualified kind of thing, but she's already qualified, and for her daughter as well, as both graduates from art, and to teach, and they've already been teaching for a couple of years now. But it was their graduation, and that night, last Sunday night, I went along, and there was a gentleman there. He's about 65, so he's 15 years older than me. And he said, I've been at this, and he's talking about the ports here. There's like a Portland, ports, with Whangarei ports, with the harbor and all that, where they come, ships come in and stuff. And he said, I've been working at the ports for 50 years straight. Because I was talking about things about work, and said, look, I haven't been at a job for more than 5 years, let alone 4. And I've experienced, I've been at different things, and in between those jobs, I've gone and studied. So I've got, film, chefs, art school, and so on, and business school and stuff like that. But then work, different jobs, like being like a bistro chef, like in a bar, or being a dishwasher person, or selling furniture, or selling tiles, stuff like that, or having my own business as a comic shop owner, stuff just whimsical. And I'm looking at this guy, and he's 65. So he's been at the ports for 50 years straight. I'm amazed, right? Because he's been at the same job all that time. But then he goes, there's my daughter, and there's my granddaughter. They work at the ports as well, right? And they're getting paid my granddaughter's getting paid $23.50 an hour, or 26, I think it was, doing the work. And I'm going, I used to get paid $6.50 an hour at her age, right? 17, 16, and this is about in the 90s. And I'm looking at this, I'm going, how did this all happen? He goes, well, I'm a union guy, right? So we've been basically making sure that we look after our people, and now we're able to make sure that these guys coming up are looking after. So they're all wearing their MUNS, which is like Maritime Union of New Zealand, and it's got number 13 there because they're 13 port in New Zealand. All of them, just wearing that on that night because they're helping out, and because my friend's school, right, is at the port, right next to the port, so they came along to help, and that was really cool. But 50 years of dedication, like, we don't understand that as our generation, right, kind of thing. A lot of those, we just move on, and if you get if you're not getting treated well, we just go, yep. But these guys, like, this is they have kids, generational, especially like you said, to granddad and stuff, like all this, like small towns. That's why I feel like that song that came out, like, that song from that small town, and also that other one that recently came out, like, hit me hard. I was like, I could really feel in my soul about what it was like to be in that small town, growing up surrounded by people who knew you and who'd like take care of you and stuff. It's kind of it. What was it like for you growing up in that town, like, as a kid?
Everybody knew you. I mean, 900
Yeah.
people, and you weren't a stranger to anybody. But it was it's a lot like some of the movies I watch in the 80s, where it's like the Goonies. Okay, like just kids just take off on their bicycles and look for adventure. The parents, no idea where you are. I one time got on my bicycle, and I found a country road that went to the next town.
Yeah.
And and somebody there knew me, and they're like, "Hey, did you know he's over here?" And they're like, "Where are you at?" I'm like, "I'm over here." It's like, I said, "I'll drive home," and I hadn't thought about the fact that before I could get home, it would be dark. They're like, "You stay there, we'll come get you."
Yeah.
But we went into the woods, not our woods. Didn't know whose woods it was. It was just the woods.
Right.
Run around different cut across backyards, and you knew not to mess with somebody's house or their property, because first of all, it was the 70s and the 80s. You were a little kid and your neighbor caught you being bad, they could spank you.
Yeah.
And then they would take you to your parents, and you would say, they spanked me. Why'd they spank you? Because I did this. Yeah, you're going to get another one now.
Yeah. And
So it's,
and city folks don't understand that, right? Because they're in their apartments. They only know that person and that person. They don't know that person over there, and so on. And like I stood up, like for me, because I'm the only at that early time, like in the around about 80, 83, 84, 82. I was the only Indian in my little Indian kid in the whole town,
oh,
if
they
not
knew
like
you.
yeah, they knew me, right? And just like it's talking about Goonies, that was us just getting on our little bikes and just going off and not worrying about anything, building little, little huts and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you guys call it huts as well?
We would build lean-tos out in the woods.
Right,
We would
right.
put up tents and just sleep outside at night with friends.
Yeah,
It's like, no fence around the yard.
yeah,
Anybody could have walked in and just said, "Oh, look, kids, at
mm,
3 in the morning, grab them, take off." Nah,
yeah.
it wasn't a thing.
It's so I mean, like we're still rural where we live here. Like it's a city, it feels rural because we're surrounded by like mountains and stuff, like and hills and stuff. And there's a beach. There's like a port right there. Like only like I guess about 30 minutes walk, maybe
Okay.
even less. Like 30 minutes for me, 20 minutes for me, because I walk with a cane. So, but like right over there is the harbor for us, and 30 minutes with on a car is the beach. But if you go this way, it's all farmland, right? It's all
Yep.
farmland. But right here is a city. 15 minutes over here is a city, and so even though it's a city, it's so rural. We like because we're rural, kind of like semi-rural kind of feel. People walk into town with no shoes on, right? Because we're just so used to it. And there's that that come up. I think that um there's just something wellness that comes from being in a small town, being raised in a small town. It's that culture that people in cities won't understand if you come from that. You're so like I like because I come from Fiji. Everybody's an uncle or aunt. That's how you refer to people. Anybody older than you that is like that isn't your age
Right.
is an uncle or an aunt, right? So
Makes
I
for a
would
family
call
kind of feeling.
yeah, because I come from a village and then coming from into a little town. So we kind of like go. Okay, I would go to my friend's mom and dad. I go uncle or aunt, and they'll laugh. They'll think it was a joke, because I was saying that. But they don't realize that that's how we had to respect our, other people in our extended area, extended neighbors and stuff.
Right.
And but you could basically, like you said, cut across the back of people's homes and they wouldn't care. We'd be kids, playing anywhere. We'll be like riding bikes and stuff. And now it feels like there is that whole thing, it's kind of gone. It
Oh,
feels
it
like
is.
this whole village mentality of taking care of each other is gone. And because of that, I think that also comes into the idea of what's happening now, which is like you can't say certain things to people. Like you can't say, "Hey, stop doing that," right? When you see somebody doing something, oh, you don't want to get involved to help someone. And it feels really strange. But I mean, I remember walking into the middle of fights and grabbing the weak guy at 20 years old, right? And going,
Right.
"Oh, right, that's it, just back off," and not worrying about it. But I wouldn't see anybody from the city kind of doing that, right? But I'd be like, because I'm from the country, I'm like, yeah, this is not happening. This is not on. Skinny old me, and nobody's gonna do anything to me because I'm the skinny guy, right? So they already know that. Why would you want to hit the skinny dude? And he's the one who's like, and it's like everybody, like there was a friggin' 100 kids there. There's like an after school ball, and I'm like, but I've done that with like, sort of like with people older than me, just going because there was a car crash just over here a couple of years ago, and about 20 years ago, and I saw the guy who the guy crashed into coming over to go at him. And I'm like, hey, 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 just calm down. And not because I thought like, yeah, nobody's gonna beat me up. I'm not like, just wasn't scared because I was like, does this is not the way to do things. But that's country mentality, right? You don't see
Right.
anybody do that rural. Have you been, it's kind of hard to describe. Like, what was it like for you, sort of like when did you like? Are you still in Faro, or have you grown? Moved elsewhere, or what was
Oh,
the transition from child to teenage and
oh,
stuff like that?
yeah. When I left to go to college, to go to
Okay,
school for IT and computers, that was a move to Chicago,
all right,
and that was a culture shift because that
yeah,
was a huge city, huge city. And I'm
yeah,
there on my own for the first time in my life, and I
mm,
remember, first time I took the train into Chicago, getting my first job at
yeah,
Radio Shack,
okay,
and and I had to go to Chicago
mm,
because that's where they administered the lie detector test that I had to pass to run a cash drawer at Radio Shack. No cash
wow,
registers. We sold computers. We had handwritten receipts.
right,
I totally boggled my mind. But I got out. I'm like looking around. I'm like, okay, I hope this train station dropped me off where I really need to be. Yes, there's
mm,
the building. I'm I'm 3.5 hours early because I don't know what train to get on to make sure I get here
mm,
on time. I have $2 in my pocket.
yeah,
So I find this little cafe underneath there. I can get a $1.95 hot chocolate, and I just sat there and I nursed that thing until it was time to go up. But yeah, the learning how to navigate traffic all of a sudden,
yeah,
um, like 4 lanes of it all going in the same direction.
yeah,
Like it was. I always say that, like, I grew older in Southern Illinois. I grew up in Chicago
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's where you learn to fend for yourself. And then after that, I was just like all over the place. I've been to the East Coast in North Carolina, worked there for a while.
mm,
I'm in Arkansas right now. I'm actually in the Ozark Mountains, and I do a lot of my
okay.
work from home. So
Is this
it's
is that like the Ozark TV show?
no,
So
no.
it's not
Did,
mountains, like the mountains and stuff like that, and
oh,
lakes
oh,
and
it's
all that.
mountains and lakes all over the place. Yes, don't get me
Mm,
wrong. I can walk to the lake,
yeah,
um, and it's beautiful country. In
it
fact,
is.
where
Like
I'm
I
at
was
is
really amazed. Yeah.
yeah, it's a nature preserve here. So
Okay.
it's a smaller town than what I grew up in.
Yeah.
So it's more rural than I've ever experienced. It's like
Mm,
they roll the sidewalks up at 8 o'clock. The gas station I went to last week, and I was like, hey, I'm gonna, they sell pizzas at the gas station. They're really good too. And they're
mhm,
like, oh, we're not making any more because we're getting ready to close. I'm like, it's 7:30. It's like, yeah, we
yeah.
close at 8. Like, really? Uh, but I can open my window here and look outside all day long, and I will see deer just wander
Yeah.
around my front yard, raccoons,
Mm,
squirrels. I feed the squirrels. I have a bird feeder on my window. I have all kinds of
yeah.
birds show up. It's a nature show all day long.
It's awesome. Do you find like when I'm in an apartment for the first time in my life, right? For the last first time alone. I've never lived alone. Like I've moved everywhere and I've never lived alone. So 5 years ago, maybe it's coming up to 6 years. So because I'm always into planting plants and gardens and stuff like that, I built a balcony, garden. And so out of that came silkweed, and then out of that came monarch butterflies, and out of that came the caterpillars. And I'm just watching the beauty of how these things happen. Like a butterfly flies over, lays an egg on my silkweed, and the caterpillars pop out and they eat all that, and then they go into their cocoons. And sometimes there isn't enough like leaves, or they're too far, and it's so I grab them, grab a little container like this, right? And I have the leaves on there and have the and bring them inside with the caterpillars, and they go into cocoons, and I go put them outside again, and watching that transition, man, has taught me so much about like appreciating life and nature and just all that time. So do you find for mental, like I found that was really good for my mental health, right? Because I finally wasn't just taking care of myself. I was actually taking care of these beautiful butterflies, even though tiny little creatures. But when you watch this beautiful monarchs fly around, it's just so cool. And season in, season out, like whenever, every couple of months, they would come in and do that. And it was such joy. do you find that with like all these animals in your backyard and stuff and that nature, how's that been for like, for, doing what you do and being creative?
It's very relaxing.
Mm,
I mean, when I first got here, even growing up in rural community that I did, you didn't see a
mm,
deer all the time.
right,
Especially wander through town.
right.
Now it's, I I've had clients come and visit with their
Mm,
to deliver their books. They'd stay a couple of days, and we would see deer every single day, any time of the
yeah,
day. And they were like, "Oh my gosh!" And I'd be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, we have those." I'm so used to it now that I've sort of lost the magic. But
yeah,
this every once in a while, a big buck will come right through the yard with
yeah,
antlers up in the air, and I'm like, "Oh yeah,
mm,
you're a pretty boy. Can't
yeah,
shoot you."
yeah.
And
So,
they know it.
yeah, because like it gets to a point when you're like, yeah, they're just just carry on, go and hump some, females and get us some more young ones and so on, and
Yeah, that's usually what you'll see is the mama with the babies, especially in
yeah,
mid-spring. You just all these
mm,
pretty white dotted fawns walking around, uh,
right,
totally unaware of you. Like, where am I? What's going on, Mom? Where? Oh, there you are.
yeah,
Um, I first week I was here, I was
right,
coming up the road to the place I'm renting here, and there was a mama and a baby in the road,
mm,
and they split directions. And I was
right,
like, I'm just stopped there watching. I was like, well, that's not good. So I'm
yeah,
like, I could tell the baby was in the ditch beside the road. So I got out of the car, and I'm like, I got my phone now. I'm just taking pictures of this. I've never
yeah,
been this close to a deer in the wild. I'm just taking pictures of her,
yeah,
and I could see that she had gotten her front hoof hooked around her
yeah,
head like this as she's laying there in
right,
the tall grass trying not to move. So I'm reaching her like, oh, can I do this? Just like, am I going to break her leg off? And brought
yeah,
her leg up over her head. And I didn't know deer could scream, but she screamed. I was like, you're okay. I saw her mom trot back across the road a little further up and get on the same side. I'm
yeah,
like, okay, that way, go.
yeah,
Um, and that's the closest I've gotten to deer the whole time I've been here.
yeah. Like with all that there, like I mean, in nature, but it's a nature preserve. Did you say
Yeah, yeah,
reserve?
it's
So no,
illegal to
so
shoot
people
anything
can't
here.
actually shoot or anything like that.
Yeah, you can take all the fish out of the lake you want.
Yeah,
Um,
but you can't shoot deer,
you can't shoot the deer, you can't shoot the squirrel.
right?
I'm not sure how far out of town you have to go to be able to do that because you're
Mm.
making me hungry for venison meat now.
Yeah. Well, it's been a while. Like I remember, like talking about venison, right? We get, we can have sausages here. We actually in South Island, they actually have like actual farms for for antlers and meat and stuff like that. But like a couple of years ago, I was in Southland at the bottom, which is we're in the Northland, right? So Southland down to the bottom there, and I actually know it was like Tauranga. There's another place. They were celebrating a win, a rugby league win, and they had like kangaroo burgers, right? And kangaroo like steaks. So
Hmm.
I actually had a flank, like the ribeye at the back of those, the real expensive meat. So they had kangaroo meat. So that's probably the most exotic I've gotten with like meat, because Aussies, you know, being kangaroo comes from Australia, and we're like kind of like competitive, like sports wise, and so they're our cousins almost, but we act like Canada and America, right? But
Right, right.
we still have that little competitiveness between us. Like I've got two brothers who live in Australia, and it's
Yeah,
like,
Canada's right next door, and they don't know what bacon is. I
yeah.
understand that.
Talking about bacon, right? When I was young, when I came to realize, why are you guys squishing all your freaking bacons like at home? We'd be like, cook it and it'll be still nice and thick and stuff. But then I go to McDonald's and they're like, what is this with the flat freaking crunchy things? I'm like, what do you guys do to the meat? What is that about Americans
I,
that's what you guys do to bacon of all things? Like,
I, it,
like,
it, it, it crisps better when it's thinner, as best I can figure, and that's the way.
but
The way I like my bacon,
yeah,
cook, put a strip in there, cook it until it's burnt. Now put the next strip in and cook it just a little tiny bit less, and that's perfect.
Right.
I like it to just break off right in my teeth.
That's very American. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's one of the most American things I've ever seen. Is they like, and the weird thing is, I saw somebody with an iron type thing, like you press it, so it's actually all pressed. I'm like,
I've never pressed it. I always just fry it in
I'm
a
like,
pan.
Nobody does that to steak or pork loin, right? Or chops and stuff like that. Why are you doing that to bacon? I'm like, it doesn't make sense to me that you like take all the, all the liquid out of it. It's like, it amazed me about that, about Americans. Oh, the
Up
other
in
thing.
St. Louis, there's a restaurant called Frank and Helen's that was near a place that I worked, and they had a BLT, and it was like, people would go there and order the BLT. It's like, oh, I'm not going to get the pizza. I'm not going to get the big pasta. It was a huge Italian restaurant. I'll just get the BLT. One does not simply just get the BLT. What that thing doesn't tell you is that is a pound of bacon. Fried crisp, with like a half a head of lettuce and 4 tomatoes on it. And the only question they ask you is, do you want it with mayo or not? Yes, you want it with the mayo. You got to wet that lettuce down. But oh my God, that thing is good because it's like you take that bite and just bacon crumbs are just falling all over the place.
I just can't get over the whole. I still won't eat. It'll be on burgers, fine, but at home, I will never do that to a bacon. It's like it's sacrilege for me to like, because being a butcher's son, right?
Bacon's chewy. It's not done yet.
Yeah, but being a butcher's son is like you're killing the bacon meat. The other thing I wanted to ask you, all right, is colored greens. Are they long beans?
Right? Colored greens?
Yeah, are they long beans?
No, colored greens are okay. Now that's a deep South thing. That's not. I was in the Midwest, rural, but collard greens are they're more like spinach. So they're leafy. They're just leaf. There's no long bean to it. You're thinking of string beans, which we also call green beans.
Right. So and that's one of my favorite beans. Like my mom, like we get them from Fiji, right? And that's one of my favorite bean. Like if there is a bean, that's my favorite bean. And so I've always had that. Like I've always loved it as a kid, and I've always had that, curried and stuff like that. It's that there's a taste in the long bean that's sweet, which kind of like when you marry it with curry, it's like the perfect vegetable. And so even the other week there was like a funeral, and they brought some food back over, and there was long beans, and I was like, yes, there's pork curry and all that. Yeah.
If you get them raw out of the fields, then you gotta snap them. And
that's it.
They have a real crisp break to them.
Yeah. It's like suburban people don't realize like the whole symbiosis that rural people have with nature and with agriculture, with farming, that they don't understand. And I think
we know where the food comes from,
right? And when they look, and this is what I find really, really strange. Like we don't have that in New Zealand, right? The whole redneck thing, we don't have that in New Zealand, where where you kind of like put down the rural people because you think they're uneducated. But like you ask anybody who hasn't been to actual university or something, how do you grow this? They won't have a clue. How do you look up? How do you husband the farm animals? Will never clue. It's like they'll die within like a year.
Yeah,
if they, if they didn't have anything. Yet us, we'd be like, yeah, cool, let's go. Get the knife out, let's go butcher something, and ready to go. And but I found like, I always find that kind of strange, like that whole animosity or that division between the farm and the cities, where we don't have that in New Zealand, because we know that we know where our food comes from. We know there's a sheep over there as you drive past. Anywhere you go in New Zealand, there's a farm. Like on the road, you'll see an animal, like a farm
city
animal.
People rely on the food that you make for them, but they don't like the way you vote. Therefore, you're and that's the big divide.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, well, how about you guys go and cook our food, right? Go farm, and we'll go live in the city. Yet, if you bring within like because we're so being from the farm, we're able to or rural, we're able to change very quickly and adapt quickly, right, to things. But the other way around could not happen because it's like I don't think the city people, I mean, the rural people have the same animosity towards city people that city people have towards rural people,
No,
and
no,
it
they
might
don't
be in their
hate them.
head
They
they
just
think,
sort of it's almost an amused pity.
yeah, yet they couldn't survive on without the grocery store at all. I found like the funniest thing I saw was during the riots and stuff or whatever it was that somebody was trying to grow a tomato plant, right, in the city on the sidewalk, right? There was a little patch that they had taken over, right, occupied, and I'm laughing. I'm like, this is going to take ages. They don't realize how long this is going to take because I grow tomatoes, like I grow cherry tomatoes on my balcony, and it's kind of seasonal. So seeds will like every time like there's a like the sun's got into it and there's a split, I just grab it into the soil, right? And so this is the first time this year that like this season I haven't had tomatoes because I gave them the plants all away, and then suddenly bugs got into it, and then my planter got. It's been 5 years, so the planter started rotting away, and all that. I got to fix it.
I grew
And
tomatoes once, and
yeah,
all the time I spent outside not growing tomatoes, never saw a Japanese beetle. Figured, they must be rare. You want to find Japanese beetles? Plant tomatoes. They will find you. And I put up that bag that's like a trap for them. I was like, okay, that'll last all summer. No, you take that off. Take that thing off in the week because it weighs 5 pounds worth of Japanese beetles now. I got no tomatoes. I was basically growing rabbit food because I went for that newfangled grow them upside down thing that they had where they got hanging out the porch and would just like hang down like this. You know what that is? That's you ever seen a hamster cage where they put the water bottle in there and the stick is coming down, the hamster just comes and nibbles it. It's, right there at mouth level. Yeah, that's a rabbit feeder when you're growing tomatoes that way. They're just hanging there. The rabbit doesn't have to do any work. It just walks right up, just eats off the side of the tomato, and they don't finish it. They just eat a half a tomato and leave the rest of it there like, like it's a gift. Like, look, I didn't take it all.
Yeah. It's like, I'll just have a bit and like, I'll come back next time, and they never come back. It's, I found that amusing, right? Just like having grown tomatoes and knowing how long it takes, like it's months, right? And but the joy is being able to pick it up and eat it, right? Just go out there, grab a cherry, rub the dirt off, whatever, and just straight into the mouth, and
I
that
used to rip
experience.
off all my fruit, and now I'm like on this low carb diet because I got tired of being 256 pounds and like this is not sustainable. I was sustainable actually. I could even go up, but I didn't want to. So now I'm like looking at what's the lowest carbs things I can eat. I try to keep it down to almost 0 a day. I'm like, I need fruit, I need sugar. It's raspberries, and I'm like so hungry all the time now that when I go to the grocery store and I'll buy a flat of raspberries and they're gone before I get home. I'm just eating them right out. I've rinsed them. What do you got to rinse them for? They've been rinsed 5, 6, 7 times. They're clean.
So you're at college.
Yes.
What did you like? You studied like you were at Radio Shack as a job while you're at
Radio
college,
Shack as a job for a while. Yeah, So when I was in high school, you already knew how the reading scores went from early on, and that just kind of sort of carried forward. I went to DeVry Institute on a full ride scholarship because of my testing scores. I had the chance to go either to DeVry or to go to West Point Summer School, both for free. And I was like, well, that's just summer school, and it doesn't continue on. Plus, it's military, and I really don't want to do push-ups. I was a dumb kid. I was like, I tell people, I ended up working for the military as my first job out of college. And they're like, you realize you're like, at the time I was like 45 as somebody, and they're like, you'd have been retired right now on a military pension, not having to do nothing. Yeah, well, where were you 30 years ago when I was?
Why would you? Talking about that, right? Just quickly. So, like I said, last Sunday I was at this event. I was in a $2,000 custom car, right? It's called Sandman car. It's like my friend airbrushed it up, and It's like this guy owns it. We're sitting in there because he's going to give me a ride home because he's going back to Auckland, and the motor's running, and two kids drive up and park because we're in a parking lot just off the main street, and I'm sitting in the car because I'm recording the I think it's a Chevrolet 350 whatever it is, and two kids come up, and I go, oh, because I used to do youth work, and I love talking to young people and stuff. So I pop out, and these kids go, oh, I go, what's up, guys? He goes, oh, come to check out the car. It's like, oh, you want to check out my car? Sure, we can take some photos and stuff, but if you really want to really check it out, you need to talk to the boss. So that we have a laugh, and then I'm talking to these kids, and I go, so how old are you? He goes, oh, I'm 19. He goes, oh, what do you guys do? Fabricators. Go, listen, I'm 50. Don't drink, and don't smoke. Save the next 5 years. That's all you need to know. 5-10 years, just save as much as you can. You're good. That's it.
Yep. I wish I,
Yeah.
live on
Because
half
I wish
of what
somebody
you're
had told
making
me
because you
that,
can.
right?
Yeah.
Because I wish somebody had told me that at 19 or 20, do that, kid. Don't get into alcohol because, for about freaking the next 10 years of my life, that's all it was. Was work, alcohol, work, alcohol, work, alcohol.
Well, for me, it was like, I didn't drink all that much. So I didn't have, I mean, I did, but, never to excess or drunk. Wasn't a partier kind of guy. I've been drunk twice in my life, once in college and once after. But, I had a bad comic book habit. Even in college, when I, with my part-time jobs, that's where I found comic book stores. I'm like, stores that sell nothing but comics? They exist? Really? And it was, so I would get my weekly paycheck, and my budget was this. What's the minimum amount I can spend to have just enough to eat until my next paycheck?
Same.
And how much will I have left to spend on comics? Because that's where, if I bought food and the bills were paid, I'm like, I got $200 left. That's how many comics I was going to buy. I was going to buy $200 worth of comics. And did. And it was the glory days too. It was, the John
the 90s,
Byrne,
right? Late 80s, 90s.
Yeah, John Byrne, Man of Steel, Secret Wars, Ronin, Watchmen, Dark Knight Returns. It was all the good stuff.
Yeah. So you got the job at Radio Shack. You're doing college. What were you studying? Sorry.
I was studying how to be a computer programmer.
Right. And that's that, like, just getting into it, wasn't it? Like, I mean, about that time is when, like, you just got into Commodore 64, you come out of Atari and all that, and VIC-20s, and now I think that's what we had at our home. And so now IBM, so you programming. Like, why did you decide to go into that at that age?
Well, the high school I was at had been gifted some Apple IIe's. So suddenly there was a computer programming class for the seniors. I was not a senior. I was a junior, and they were at the back of my geometry class, but the teacher said, hey, if you get your homework done, you can go back and play with the computers. So the first semester, I was back there learning the computers, and it was a one-semester computer class. The second semester, I'm back there tutoring the seniors who are taking their first semester computer classes. Like, oh, he's picked up on that. So, I was into the class after that and just kind of zipped through it. The guy from DeVry came to the school, said, hey, if you're into computers, we're looking for people. Here's how to apply for a scholarship. I'm like, sure, why not? It's a form. Give him the ACT score, and next thing I know, there's this letter with a check. I'm like, well, I guess my career path is decided. And many, 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 many times I thought, why did I get stuck on this path? But I said, because it pays. It pays the bill. Sometimes I thought I'd rather been a teacher, but then I look at what they get paid. I'm like, nope.
Yeah. Well, I mean, with the two decisions, like it's either military or going into that. I mean, like both of them, like, are good decisions, right? You basically were able to.
They were great decisions.
Yeah. So how many years was this college? Was it a degree, bachelor's?
It was a degree,
Doctorate?
bachelor's degree. Finished it in 2.5 years
Wow.
because I didn't take any summer vacations. Just kind of went straight on through.
Good.
That was sufficient for a while. Got my first job about 6, 7 months later.
Mm.
And then, corporate life, learn how to survive the corporate culture. Eventually got my master's degree further on. And, it's always working for somebody else. It's not something that's a trade, at least not at
Yeah.
the level I did it, where I could just
Yeah.
say, you know what, I'm going to start my own data processing company. Wait a minute, I can't start my own IT department. I don't have an accounting department. I don't have a manufacturing department.
Yeah.
What I did end up doing, when I started to do the podcasting and talk to people who needed distribution, I'm like, logistics, now that's something I can do. And that's
Right.
got IT in it. So, my IT experience came in where I was able to take all this Kickstarter data or this Indiegogo data and
Yeah.
crunch it down into something more manageable,
Right.
where I can get things out quickly,
Right.
because I know that most of the Kickstarter people, they finish their campaigns, they get their little spreadsheet in, and they just go to that top line. Oh, he's getting this and this, and they make that and they label it and they put it out. What's the second line? No, I don't do that. I find every occurrence of the person. I group
Yeah.
things together that are similar. I give them labels of group types, and then I
Yeah.
print all the labels at once. And I don't even care what their names are anymore. It's like, you're an A, you're a B, you're an A, you're a B.
Mm. This is something that I found really interesting. Like, I mean, it's like the last 5 years, the only time when I've really moved into comics and um I guess podcasting, but like actually doing everything that I'm good at. It's only been the last 5 years that I've been able to,
Yeah,
like, and all the little bits throughout my life has come into effect in this what I'm doing here, like learning to deal with like youth work, right? Managing people, retail, talking to clients, like sponsors and stuff like that, data processing and stuff like learning how to kind of fill out forms and whatever,
sure.
and like because I used to be part of a church, so I knew how to like put on events due to that. And it's like when you get at this, like a lot of people kind of struggle because they've only been the one thing. And I think for you, like being able to take what with all that knowledge and bringing that into not only doing comics and stuff, but actually podcasting. Did the comic part come first, or did the podcasting come first?
The comic part came first. It took me 50 years to figure out what I wanted to be when I grew up. But
Right.
so the comics part came from doing a website. A
Mm.
company I was at wanted to do a website, and I'm like, well, why don't I just train myself how to build a website? I'd been writing for a comic website for 14 years that wasn't
Okay.
mine, and the guy
Right.
decided, hey, I'm going to close it down. I wasn't getting paid. I was just, reading comics and
Yeah.
writing reviews. So I said, well, but I was getting free DVDs, which I kind of like that.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
I said, well, why don't I just, my company needs to learn how to do it. I need to learn how to do it. So I built my own as sort of an on-the-job training kind of thing, and I made Critical Blast,
Mm.
and it was just going to be a pop culture media review website outlet,
Yeah.
where we would, do interviews and do written reviews. And I did a lot of written interviews. I'd get on the phone and record it with the, camera up to my
Yeah.
ear and all that good stuff. And then 2.5 hours of typing for a 10-minute interview,
Yeah.
which was fine. It was the way of the world. But
Mm.
then live streaming became a thing. And
Mm.
suddenly anybody could do it
Yeah.
with very little technology. So, we had the YouTube channel. I mean, when I opened up criticalblast.com, I made sure
Mm.
that we secured every possible social media name for it.
Right.
And I'm like, well, let's take advantage of this YouTube channel thing that we've got here. And I found out that doing live interviews was a lot easier
Yeah.
than typing it all up. Now, it didn't bring any traffic to the website because people were going to YouTube instead. But
Mm.
I wasn't trying to make a fortune with the website.
Right.
And Thankfully, I wasn't trying to make a fortune with YouTube either, because I sure didn't.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm demonetized again, so I'm starting back at square one.
Yeah, I mean, I got a strike because of like of YouTube, playing videos on a live stream with YouTube, right? From YouTube. And it's just the weirdest thing. Like, but I mean, I think with with like, because I come from radio as well, and I understand where you're talking about typing, come from blogging as well, you know, doing interviews and stuff, and you write up all this stuff, go send off like like I did a blog for myself, and I was like 5 questions, right? And then I'd send back what they've typed up. And then when I go to events, like get my phone out, record them that way, or my pad. And I think there is this there's this thing that like you lose by writing something, you know, like his answer, you know, and you're trying to like go along with it. Whereas
Yeah.
like this, and this is what I love about podcasts and I love about the whole YouTube thing, is that you just ask questions and people, it goes wherever it goes. And like for me personally, I just go with wherever it goes because I find it really cool. And I find that like that way you just enjoy the conversations and stuff rather than going, okay, so all right, here's a question. And next thing, it's like it feels a bit weird. And I'm kind of sometimes for me, like you know, having come from radio, like, yeah, you gotta have these questions. But the authenticity of YouTube and people I gravitate towards them are just ones who are just off the cuff talking about things, you know. And I find that those conversations I can just listen to all day long, and just listen to people just talk about what they love and what they're passionate about. And how did like you know, you with your channel you have like panels and stuff, and you get the whole, you know, the whole team up and they talk about stuff. What was it like arranging, you know, like how did that get started to actually go, okay, I'm going to actually go away from the questions and go, right, I might as well just ask them directly to come on board. How'd you go about doing that? I mean, like, how long have you been doing it, by the way? I should ask that first.
7 years, I want to say now.
Right.
Doing the since the website was born, probably 4 years with the live streaming, maybe 5 years with the live streaming.
Yeah.
We kicked that up in kind of like 2018, 2019. And I do it a lot less now because it became a chore because I'd have a calendar out and I would try to schedule something for every night of the week. And then I would be like, you know what, let's just not do Fridays. Let's do Monday through Thursday. Yeah. And it was like, if I opened my calendar up and there was nothing going on tomorrow, it was a panic. I'm like, I got to get a show going. I got to find somebody who wants to come on. Hey, who needs to come on and promote their book? You know, after a while, you're like, why am I so tired? Oh, because I'm doing something every single night.
Yeah. Yeah, I did that in August because we had our Kickstarter, and which worked and everything. But like, I would just get off here and I'd go lie down because like I already have health issues. So, but like, I don't usually sit up. And then like, I found that like for that month of sitting up, I was so exhausted, and it was like, just people don't realize that when you're talking all the time, there's a lot of energy that comes out of that. It's not like it's almost like you're working, you know, like you're lifting
I was
weights
doing things
and stuff.
like if I had a Saturday where I had nothing planned, I knew I wasn't going to be driving somewhere. I knew I didn't have to go shopping. I was going to be home all day. I did marathon live streams, and it wasn't like I just turned it on and kept talking. I scheduled. At one point, I had 12 to 13 guests in a row, 1 hour each. Just went from one to the next, to the next, to the next. I'd stop the show, start a new one. Stop the show, start a new one. It was that was a challenge, but I'd like, nope, we're not doing that again.
The other thing side of that is like, I mean, if anything good, right? So if you overdo anything good, you become slowly become better towards it, and it's not fun anymore. And I've had that, you know, I've had that happen. Like I've like the last 5 years I've been doing conventions. Like we do our own little convention, right? Independent community convention. And like it was getting to where I was like running it on my own for 3 months at a, 3 months, 4 months of sorting it through. And And I just like I was coming off that, and we were about to do one in September, and we pulled the plug on that. But like as I was coming on to that, I was thinking, I need a break. I really, really need a break because this is tiring me out. And not only that, I'm starting to feel what I used to feel when I had my first breakdown, like when I was a kid. Like by a kid, when I was half my age, was like about 27. I actually had a mental breakdown because of just doing so
Too much
much.
stress, too much pressure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just thought, I kind of feel like this now. I'm kind of hating this. And that's when I thought, nah, I need a sabbatical. So after this one in September, I'll take the next 15 months off and I'll do something different. And that something different was like, I'll do podcasts. I'll do what I enjoy, which is talking to people. And that way I don't feel, I still am doing what I'm doing, which I love, which is pop culture and stuff and talking to people and, creative people. But it's something different. And, and if I then again feel like that way, I'll take another break. Because I've learned now, right? Once you had a breakdown through exhaustion and stuff like that, you can only learn. And if you don't learn, well, I don't know how to help you because you need to know the science. Have you ever had that happen? Like, because you're talking about like how you get exhausted and stuff like that. So did you come close to going, okay, hands up, I'm out of here?
Oh, I've never wanted to just quit. But I came to care less about, do I have a show tonight? No.
Yeah.
Netflix night.
Yeah.
Just, kick back and do nothing. And there's nothing wrong with that. Have a night where you just sit there and, be. But it's, for me though, it's been, I've got an 8 to 5 job, and
right.
It happens to be spent right here,
right,
doing working for the man, and then after that, that's when I do my job for my company, which right now I'm shipping a lot of books, but I can't package books when I'm working for my employer. It's unethical for one thing, and for another, I can't split my focus that way. So now the nights are like, well, I've got a few hundred books that I need to package up here and get labeled. So I'll just sit there and do that. And I can do that while watching Netflix because, like I said, I made it an assembly line stupid process. I'm just like, bag, seal, bag, seal, bag, seal. Next episode, bag, seal, bag, seal.
Yeah. But at least, I mean, that's a cool thing about something like that. Like you're so used to like just easy stuff. It's like manual labor, right? You're doing manual labor while you're still enjoying something else.
I sometimes I do it. I'm like, why didn't I get an assembly line factory worker job when I was young, and I wouldn't have to think about nothing my whole life? Just
I used to do that, right? Biscuit factory, right? Baking biscuits, taking it off the trays at 16, right? 17, and then putting like I think it was like 12 per bag, 6 on each side, into plastic bags, and then into boxes, and off they go. For 3 years. And like we'd go on the machines, put them on like fresh dough onto trays, into the big huge ovens, like 12-foot, not 12-foot, maybe 8-foot ovens, 8x8, and then pull them out, let them cool down, pack them, the whole process. And
repeatable process.
Right, because so you don't have to think, and then while you're there, you can think about what you're going to do in the weekend and all that. Now, I had a look at your warehouse and stuff. So tell us a bit about the warehouse, and then we'll go about the whole comics and maybe the other way around. Let's get into like how did you get into like actually like the logistics? Tell us a bit about that part. Like, I mean, I'm trying to come up with a question.
That grew out of the podcasting, believe it or not, because I was always talking with creators about their campaigns. And we had one creator on about 4 years ago now, Lee Byron Carver, who was doing The Company Men out of Australia. And it was this gorgeous looking book. It had a decent price point on the book. Shipping was enormously expensive. This was pre-COVID, and coming out of Australia.
It's even worse now. Yeah.
And nobody was buying it because no one was going to pay 5 times shipping cost of the book to get the book.
Right.
And this one of the things that I need to trademark on my podcast is I have this expression says, you know what you need to do.
Yeah.
And it's always like, you need a 3D figure, you need a print of this, you need
Yeah.
stickers. And for him, I was like, what you need to do is and I started to say, find somebody in the States that you can just ship all the books to and let them distribute them locally. And like this little angel or devil, I'm not sure which one it was yet, popped up on my shoulder, said, you need to shut up. This one's yours.
Yeah. And
so,
I get
and we
that.
did that.
Yeah. And like, here's the thing. Like, so one of the things I've always thought of, like, if you come up with the idea, it's your idea to run with.
Yeah.
Right. Because nobody else, and you can't give that away because that's your thing. And I think that is, I mean, that's something that I have a problem with, like backing stuff in America or Canada or whatever. It's like, it's 20 bucks to just get it shipped to me. It's like a single book, and it puts me off. And I so one of the things I said, like, can you ship, if I buy a book, can you ship it to that guy with, another guy who's getting it, and that, and I can just get it for $3 off him, right? Or I can go halves on it with him. And it's,
well, there's a guy in Australia now who's doing what I do, which is, and we partnered with him. He's like,
right.
Hey, I'm going to take all my Australia books, and I have to do the math because like sometimes it's cheaper for me to ship them directly to the people, and sometimes it's cheaper for me to bundle them up and send them to Michael Bancroft, who does a great podcast and also has a great looking book called The Lucent.
Right.
And whatever's cheaper is whatever's cheaper for my client is what I'm going to do.
Right.
But yeah, he's taking all the Australia and New Zealand books, and then he sends them at domestic rates where he's at.
Yeah. I mean,
brings that cost way down.
So how many people are you doing this with?
A lot now. I mean,
right.
Well, you saw the warehouse. You mentioned that. We have 2.
Okay.
Because we suddenly took 6 pallets of role-playing games from Gifted Rebels, and now we're distributing all of their stuff. Globally.
So how does, like, tell us about the process of this, because like, so these guys print all their stuff, and then
and then the printer, normally the printer ships everything straight to us, bundled up in a box and everything. We open it on a private live stream with the client, say, look, everything's here, or, oh wow, they really screwed up this box because here's all your damages. But basically, they see what their product is going to look like.
Right.
Ideally, we've spoken before they've even launched their campaign so that they knew what to charge for shipping, because that's what we're really doing, is getting your shipping costs down low. And so it's like, I'll ask the question, tell me about your book. And it's funny because they'll like, well, it's about this guy who's going to, like, no. I don't care what the content is. How big is it? How many pages is it? Floppy or hardcover? And what are you going to put in there with it? You're going to put in, well, we're going to put in, some trading cards. Cool. We're going to put in there a little print. Great. We're going to have a T-shirt. Okay. You've left the world of media mail now, and you've entered first class. That's going to jack your price up. The things that they don't think about. I listened to one guy who was one of my early clients, and we got his price down on the shipping to beautifully reasonable. And we had the weights and everything. And I listened to him on a podcast halfway through his campaign. He's like, if we reach this certain goal, we're putting metal covers on everything. I'm like, you dummy.
Yeah.
It's like, you're collecting this much for shipping, but I know how much I'm charging you for shipping when it gets here, because that's going to be heavy.
But so this is something like the creatives who aren't business minded, right? Don't understand. And I think a lot of people who get into the bizzo, right? They're just creatives. They just, I'm going to create and I'm out here and put it up and but like a lot of times there is so much business behind it and pre-planning and the end side of it that they don't understand. And like,
they get excited by what's cool, and they don't understand the mechanics behind making something cool. Like, I want an action figure of my character.
Oh, I'm like
Okay,
that.
have you talked to the
I'm like that.
manufacturing facilities?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then like it's like, oh, it's going to cut 8,000. Yep. Okay. Oh, 5,000. Okay.
Well,
Because
it's
we'd
it's
already
it's
been.
it's
Yeah.
$20 for an action figure at Walmart, right? Well, yeah, but that action figure was manufactured in the millions, so your unit price is down. You're like,
Yeah.
why is it $75 to make an action figure?
Yeah.
Because you're not making a million of them.
Right.
But
Yeah. I mean, like I was working with folks overseas, and like here's a design of this and this and this and this. So I already knew what was going to cost and how long it was going to take and everything. And I'm like, well, okay, if we get to 8K, right, then we'll do this because I
exactly.
know because it's going to cost about 5K just to get, a 4 inch, I think it's
Is that
four
a
inch, whatever
Keshi?
it is. Yeah, it's a chibi that like we did of our own. We did it ourselves.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah. So we had a friend of ours like just 3D printed it for us. We designed it ourselves, and this is like that small, right?
But
So
no, that's cool though.
yeah, so he did like three, and we've got one that's larger than this that's being hand spray painted by the lady that I was just talking about who graduated, airbrushed. But so this is the side of the bizzo, right? So they don't understand how long it's going to take. The fact that you got to like do copper molds. Those people over there are actually going to do their own design. They're not going to take your design. I mean, they're going to take a design, but they're not going to they're going to start from scratch because they want to make sure it works for what they do. And by the end of it, the price goes up. The boxes and everything, and
Yeah.
you suddenly to print one is like about $200, and you're going, but that's your mock-up. And then you go, oh, you got to get 100, then it's going to go down. But then you got to get 5,000, it's going to go down. It's going to, then at
All that
Walmart,
paper and
then you get
cardboard that
25.
you throw away costs money.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. You got like, which one do you want? Do you want one of these type things, or do you want one of these type things? Right.
exactly.
You
Those things
or,
are as expensive as heck.
yeah, and
But
like that's just one side of the business. Then you got the comics and like you're talking about like the metal and stuff.
yeah, so that's why we're. I mean, we it used to be that a couple of boxes would come in. They'd just come in my house. I'd cut it open, and I'd package them up, and I'd get the data and I'd run it through the database engine that I wrote. It's my proprietary software, spits it out, and then that becomes my invoice, and you pay me, and I print labels. But we started to get so many of them that, and we started to become known to people. So all of a sudden, people like Drunk 3PO are reaching out saying, "Hey, can you handle distribution for this? Your name came up." I'm like, well, sure I can. Oh, it's 2 pallets worth of books. That's not coming in the house.
Now I need a warehouse.
Strakowski doing Fiendish is like, another 2 pallets worth of books.
Yeah.
Oh, we're entering the warehouse land of doing business now. Can I afford this? I have to.
Yeah.
And I can. It's working out. But we're still, distributing the small press stuff. And this is one of the ones we distribute now is the Immortal Mask. This is not a crowdfunder. This one's at Dinales.com, Dinales.com. Nice little 70s masked adventure kind of thing. It's got some supernatural elements to it. We're printing comics now.
Right.
We print them a little differently. We print them. Hear that? That's hardcover.
Hardcover.
That's a 32-page hardcover.
I think I'll be. I'm spelling that wrong. Distribution. How do you spell that?
Distribution.
Give me 1 sec. I'm getting destruction. I'm just going to leave that out. But I want, distribution. That's what we're going to say. Okay. So hardcover, like that's something I'm looking forward to getting my Incredible, right? My Incredible comic. Once we get the 6 issues out, something special, something beautiful, something amazing. Now, are you like printing books, right? Are you printing them locally? And are you,
no,
or how are you doing?
I print them internationally. We have an account with Ingram Spark. I've had it for years because guess what? We have a thing called Critical Blast Publishing. that we've been doing these anthologies like The Devil You Know Better was one of our recent ones that we did, where 20 authors wrote stories about somebody meeting the devil. We just just got this one out the door. This is the Monsters Next Door. So this
Yeah.
one's fresh on Amazon. Again, 20 authors telling stories about, hey, there's something weird going on at the house next door. Oh, that's Cthulhu's summer home. We didn't know that.
Right.
And we
So is that like is the text there, because being a comic book, right? Is the text there about the author or about the story, or is it like a story itself?
these are actually text stories. These are
okay.
narratives. But with this one, we did marry the comic book feel with the story
Light novel type thing.
Novel type thing. Because so we gave every story its own comic book cover.
Right.
And then my business partner said, well, we can't just leave the back page blank. Why don't we put these fake ads on there like you used to see in the old comics? Yeah. And
I watched the live stream on this, which was quite interesting, because like I didn't really understand what they were talking about until now. Like this is actual stories, right? And so I think it's kind of like a short story anthology, right?
Exactly. It's a short story anthology with these little ads. And then we did this one ad.
It's so cool.
This was the it was a takeoff on a guy who used to call himself Count Dante in the 1970s comics. He'd have an ad in the comics, learn to fight like a ninja. I will teach you the death touch. And I was like, we've got to do that. So we came up with Sensei Nosferatu Pak. And of course, being a monsters book, he teaches you how to fight against demons and vampires and such. And if it's okay to share my screen, I'll show you where that's gone since then.
But I'm glad to know that's what that book is, because like I was like, oh, it's a comic book, and then like, no, it's not a comic book. It's a friggin',
it's not a comic book. But there's the ad I just showed you from there. But coming now, it's going to be a comic book. Sensei Nosferatu Pak is in the works as a 1970s.
So
imagine Luke Cage.
Hold on. Yes. So you do the story, you have this ad. What made you go, you know what, we should do a comic based on this guy? Now
we had too much fun.
One sec. Now, remember when Gwenpool came out? It was a cover, like a variant cover, and nothing else.
Exactly.
And yet the fans went, you know what, I love this. And I'm one of those fans, right? I'm like, I love Gwenpool. I actually went out of my way to buy a hat, right? Just so I could have that, that character in physical form. And, and I've also got Gwenpool over here, down here somewhere. Or is she up there? She's up there. So, big, because I love her so much. And so the process, like, was it because you guys amongst yourselves talked about this, or what was it that came from that to this?
It was, we were trying to parody Count Dante, and we're like, well, what names can we come up with? And I said, well, Sensei hasn't been used. You've got Doctor This and Captain That. Like, if he's gonna be a martial artist, let's call him Sensei. And then he's fighting. He's kind of half vampire, but in another book he'll also say he's kind of half werewolf. And then in another book he'll say, "Don't worry about it, ma'am. I'm half mummy." He's always half whatever something is. Okay, so it's like he's 152 halves of things. And the book is going to be like some of the best, most outrageous 1970s blaxploitation films you've ever seen.
That's the thing that was popping in my head. I was like, Blackula. This is like Blackula.
Blackula. This is basically, if I had to elevator pitch this in a sentence, imagine Luke Cage became the Sorcerer Supreme. Yeah. And that's how he's going to talk. I mean, his
Sweet Christmas.
Yes, Sweet Christmas. Let me stop sharing here because I don't want to bring up everything on this text.
Yeah.
But there's I'll bring you the opening dialogue of the first Sensei Nosferatu Pak, which will be Sensei Nosferatu Pak and the Mummies of Atlanta.
It's kind of like I mean, I know what you're doing, but like in case people can't hear that, it's Nosferatu Pak.
Nosferatu Tupac.
Yeah. Because I saw that, I was looking at the words, it's Tupac at the end there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And that's once we had the name, we're like, we can't waste that much effort and that much fun
Yeah.
on a throwaway ad. Let's do something here.
Yeah.
So here's page 1 of Sensei Nosferatu Pak and the Mummies of Atlanta.
Awesome.
Masthead, because this is going to be done like the old Marvel comic style way. We're going to have the the intro of the character at the top and all the stuff we remember. Masthead. Out of the darkness and into the light strides a man of mystery, magic, and mother love and mojo. If evil's your game, you know the name. The master of black mystic arts kung fu, Sensei Nosferatu. Splash. Overhead view of Sensei Nosferatu Pak descending from the evening sky, carrying a woman in his arms as she clings to him. On the ground below, flat land and a ranch house with some horses in pasture. Text box. A calm sunset settles lazily over a remote Texas ranch. Suddenly, the quiet is broken as we witness a senseless, stunning arrival. Woman. Ah! Sensei. Fear not, my sister of the night. I've got you in my righteous arms, cruising through the starlit sky like a cosmic funkadelic groove. Ain't nothing gonna touch you but the breeze of freedom and the rhythm of the universe. We're on a soul train to safety, and you're gonna be right back here on that Texas ranch before you know it. So relax, let the night breeze blow away your worries, and groove to the melody of the stars. You're in good hands with Sensei Nosferatu Pak, and I promise everything's going to be as smooth as a Marvin Gaye ballad.
That was awesome.
That's the flavor of this.
And you can, and like, it's like the 70s, right? It's like,
totally the 70s.
It reminds me of Airplane,
Yes.
when that line where that lady's losing it, right? And they all come up and jive and all that. It's just classic.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Barbara Billingsley speaking jive was like, yes.
Yeah. It's all that like that will never leave my brain. It's like every time I think about Airplane, that's it. It's talk about movies. Last night I watched the Russian mermaid story. So it's actually not mermaid. It's Rusalka.
Rusalka. Okay, yeah.
Rusalka, right? So it's Rusalka Lake of the Dead. If that's what I've actually put an ad up, like a trailer for it on our page here under trailers we love. I mean on the channel, sorry. And it's Slavic mythology. So if you think of it as mermaids, you lose what it's about. But if you think about Slavic mythology, it's just amazing. And I'm like, I kind of watch it because I love that. And I'm also writing a comic book script right now on it, the Fijian mermaid kind of thing.
Sure.
Take on
Oh
that.
Yeah. P.T. Barnum's.
Yeah. And so I kind of came across and I was like, oh, this is cool. And I love people's cultures and mythologies, and it's just real like for that, like it's really cool to be able to see into other people's culture through the medium of pop culture and comics and movies and stuff like that. So something like this has always been really cool. It's like watching Airplane and jive when you're 8 years old or whatever, or 9 years old in New Zealand, and it's like, what is that? But it sticks with you because it's such a fun moment when you're sharing people's culture that you're not, that you're not actually living yourself. And
Rusalka, they were like river nymphs, weren't they? And they had like really long hair, and it would like they grab men and just pull them into the river and drown them. With their hair.
It's based around like I think, let me just bring it up. Sorry, excuse me. So from what they were talking about, there was a person who actually, and so there was a person who on the review, and I reviewed it 7 out of 10 for me, but it's got a 4.5, and I'm like, why are people giving it 4.5? So the first comment you get on here is about like, where's the mermaid, right? So they're saying like, where's the mermaid? Why aren't people getting it? So the title character is a Rusalka, not a mermaid in any Western understanding of the word. Rusalki are the damned souls of girls who committed suicide by drowning, typically because they were pregnant, out of wedlock, and abandoned or rejected by the father. Such a girl becomes a rotting half fish, half woman, hideous in appearance, inhabiting ponds and rivers, not the ocean, who tries to lure a young man to their death. They can shapeshift to appear beautiful or take the form of a living person. They're vengeful, evil, capable of sorcery, and dangerous. Don't think Ariel in a clamshell bra. Think carp zombies. And like with that background, and I didn't even know that, right, until I actually went to go review it and go, hey, this is worth 7. Ignore the 4.5. This is a really well done film. And then I like looked at the thing. Oh, I see why. Why this is what it was, and it's amazing. And like I said, like I'm writing a mermaid story, so it's anything with mermaids I'm like excited about and want to learn as much as I can. But mine's based in the Pacific Ocean, Pacific Island in Fiji, like which is like a stone's throw away from our home, like our village home in Fiji, which is like now a resort. The island, is suddenly where it's based around. But I'm taking it back to 1980s when I was a kid, so I can tell a story about my granddad and me going fishing, right, without it being about me and my granddad going fishing. So kind of put that into the story. But what was apart from like the story being from that, what made you go, okay, I'm gonna tell the stories in a bigger form and creating this character? Because I mean, I can hear you're passionate about this character, so tell us more about Nosferatu Park.
Well, he's a bit of a man of mystery. We're never really going to give an origin for him because sometimes that ruins a character. Batman needs an origin. You understand him with the origin. Wolverine never needed an origin. I mean, here's my if you give your hero an origin within the first 5 issues, perfect. If you forget to give him an origin after 10 issues, you can never give him one.
Right.
Because now you're set. He is who he is. So we'll tell like I said, there'll be hints of things, which are like, hey, don't worry, sweet mama, I'm half vampire. I can take care of this. He'll always say that. It's just going to be part of the gag. But we're building a little bit of a universe here. We didn't intend to build a universe, but then we had like 2 IPs, and we're like, you know what? Let's find a way to cross it over. So we've got 3 books planned. We're starting with Sensei Nosferatu Pak. And the Mummies of Atlanta. And then after that, we already had something in the works that was our response to Cocaine Bear. And if you remember that movie that came out, it was nowhere near as exciting in the film as it was in the posters. So we've got a circus elephant who gets involved in a smuggling ring in Mexico of Chinese fentanyl. And he ends up eating the entire bag of it that was hidden in the hay and goes on a rampage. He's Fenton Elephant.
Right.
And we're like, well, that was just a one-shot, but we figured out a way to take the ending of Fenton Elephant and springboard it into Sensei Nosferatu Pak versus Fenton Elephant. And we did it just in time to actually make it the final page in the Monsters Next Door.
Nice.
Put a cover, mock-up cover on there. And in true Nosferatu Pak fashion, the elephant's possessed by a demon in this cover.
Right.
He's like, yo, demon, you ain't got no place in this crazy creature's groove. With the power of the cosmos and the funk of the universe, I cast you out. Break those chains and set this elephant spirit free. We're just going to have fun with it entirely. George is in the chat. George is my partner on this.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to bring that up again. So, hey, George, nice to have you.
I wouldn't have anywhere near as much fun making this if it wasn't for George. And in fact, it wouldn't get made at all if it wasn't for George's work on this.
So you've gotten into like logistics of stuff like this, and you're growing, right? Because like, I mean, look, you got other people always coming to you, and now you're printing books and stuff. What has been the experience like doing this? What do you get out of it? What is like the? I mean, how do you feel about helping all these people? For yourself?
I did it initially because I wanted to help creators. We talked with Lee Byron Carver. He he had a shipping issue, cost problem. We got his ship cost down to like $9 a book, and suddenly his sales were taken off from the U.S. because the U.S. is the market.
Right.
People read comics all over the world, but the U.S. is the buying market.
Yeah.
The second person to call me up says, "Hey, would you do my book?" I'm like, "Yeah, where are you coming in from?" "Virginia." Like, you realize that you're already in the United States and that I'm not saving you any money. I'm costing you money. He's like, "Yeah, you don't realize I don't want to do it." It's like, okay, then that's a customer base I had not considered. So now we just do it for anybody who, and it's like, it makes sense if you're a comics creator and you've made your first comic and you've shipped your first comic and you're like, holy cow, is this a headache and a half? You might not make comics again. But if you just do nothing but make comics and let other people take care of the actually putting in people's hands, you can make more comics.
I mean, that's where I'm at. I'm like, basically, I write, I work with my creatives, I put the book together, and I have somebody else do the printing, get sorting out all that, because that means as a writer, I am not distracted by all that business side of stuff. Like, okay, who I need to email that distributor, that that printer, that printer. I can just concentrate working with my artists and putting out something and going, okay, give me this pinner, right? Because I'll be able to like promote it better and or do this trading card image and so on. And then I can just me and the artist and the colorist, just the three of us creating it. And then letting it go, going, okay, here, take this and do that.
And that's not something you can do if you're folding a box, shoving it in an envelope, folding a box, shoving it in.
Yeah, that's what I was going to like because that other part is just can be so daunting if you're like I said, first time creator. And not only that, you don't have the time, because once you're in the creative mode, I don't want to get distracted by, what do I do? Like, no, I need to be creative right now. I don't want to be answering emails about which print are we working with now? Or no, thank you. And
having to take the time to write and draw something because that's what you do, and that's you have to act when that's happening, and fielding off emails. Where's my book? Have you shipped my book? Where's my book? And going through actual slow delivery because you've only got so many hours in the day.
Hey, I just want to put this up. You probably saw it, but yeah,
that's George in a nutshell. George undersells himself consistently.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who do things that we like. I mean, it's good to acknowledge their part in it, because I'm not where I am today without a lot of people, and I know that, and I'm not where I am today without a lot of help. And I think a lot of times people, like, when you're out here, you're the face of it. People don't realize you're only the face of it because you got so many people helping, plus all the experience you've actually had through your life with other people helping. And I think it's good to acknowledge that from time to time. I think because it's kind of humbling as well. Like, you can go, okay, well, I only got this because I only got this made because somebody helped put some money towards it, and because somebody told me that somebody else could do it, and and then I talked to that person and they were able to do it, but then somebody else is printing it, because I don't have a 3D printer, right? And I don't have the patience to paint it because I got so much other stuff to do. And this, so like the other thing is, like, have you got, like, talking about toys and stuff, have you had people come up and go, hey, look, can you look into this for me? And here's what I'm looking at and stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of, sort of, and no. I mean, it's like, I know people who know people. So when someone says, hey, I'm thinking about doing a plushie, is that something that you guys can deliver? I'm like, we can ship anything, but I can't help you make the plushie. Go talk to this guy. Or, I want to get a 3D print. I'm like, okay, we got to be very careful about shipping those. I don't have a 3D printer. Go talk to this guy. And generally, what they find out is like, wow, that's really expensive to do. I'm like, yeah, it is.
Yeah. And then you got to buy all, like, if it breaks down, like we were printing this one, like the bigger one of this, and the printer broke down, and there was like just somebody doing it for free, right? So I wasn't going to go, and it's like, because we're just doing it for mock-ups to show and stuff like that, and we were going to give that away free anyway at the convention. But printer broke down. And it's like, it's not working. So I'm like, okay, we won't do it this year, right? We won't give them away this year. We just hold off on it. But, and the cost, like, when you see, like, you know, when you see stuff like this out there, right? And you go, well, why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? You know, but at the end of the day, it's like, you can't just do it off your first one. You can plan for it. You go, well, we'll do it, you know, of your first Kickstarter or whatever. Because one of the things people don't understand, like, a lot of that money gets eaten up by all the other things, and what you get left off is kind of like a stipends. You don't really can live off your first one unless you're like,
doing
your
first
Eric
issue.
July, right? Unless you're like someone who spent years building.
He had a foundation. He had an infrastructure in place.
Yeah.
So he could have. He didn't have to make a comic. He could have made strawberry preserves and sold 1 million jars of it.
Exactly. Or fat, right? Into a jar, and because he's got. And this is the thing, like a lot of people don't understand. Like, you have to have some sort of presence online, and someone like him. And I've watched them, and I've shared his video. There's so many people that like I have enjoyed watching over the last 5 years since I actually came back into this, into doing pop culture again after my shop closed down in 2015. It took me a while to go, is this where I want to be? Is this what I want to do? And then watching all these guys, like, just actually putting themselves out there, like yourselves, right? You're not just, this is hard work. This isn't easy stuff. And a lot of people don't realize that, like,
growth is slow.
Yeah.
You see these people that they like pop up and suddenly they're super hot. They're not going to be there in 3 years, most likely.
Yeah.
But I've seen too many creators who are on fire. They're ready to go.
Yeah.
They'll like, I'm starting my campaign, issue number 1, hottest character ever. And by the way, we have a tier with an action figure, and we have a tier with a 3D print. We have a tier with a t-shirt. Look, it's your first book. Nobody loves your character as much as you do. So
right.
You want a t-shirt and you want an action figure. Great. Go make yourself a mock-up. Don't try to crowdfund them because they're not going to sell. Save that for issue 3. If you're at issue 3, you've got people who like your character and they might want to put something on a t-shirt. And if you're going to do something with your character on a t-shirt or a hat or a patch, I'm a patch guy. Like, for God's sake, design it so that it has the name of the character on it. Don't just put a t-shirt out there with your figure on it and say, so because what you're going to do is you're going to have people walking around and someone's going to pass that person. They're going to like, that's a really cool looking superhero.
Yeah.
Wonder who that is.
Yeah.
And they'll never find out. You got a name on it? Hey, look at this. That's a really cool looking character. Joe King. I wonder what Joe King is. Oh, you know what you can do with words? You can Google words, and then you can find out who this guy is and where the books are selling. So put words on your graphics, people. There's a reason why you title them.
Right. I mean, like you said, like, nobody's more passionate about it than you. And I think by having a presence, talking about it and getting it across to people what you're passionate about is a cool way to actually build an audience. And I think but you've gone beyond that with this whole thing. And like, to actually becoming a business that's different, not only like is helping other creators, but actually creating books. And, we kind of like jumped over that, but how did you decide, well, I'm going to create books as well? Like, put 2 things together. What was that like?
It was never really a decision to put the things together. It was just all of the different things that I liked doing started happening at the same time. I was reading at 4. I was writing stories at 6. I wrote my first play in 1st grade, and it got performed by the 8th grade class.
Awesome.
When I was in 5th grade, I wrote a Spider-Man Green Lantern team up for one of my weekly essays that had to be turned in.
Yeah.
I still remember how the story went. Wrote my first novelette in high school. And then, when I finally got out on my own, my first published book was Alice's Journey Beyond the Moon. It went to a publisher in England. They liked it, and I'm like, I like this. I like writing books. Then I started writing for the Destroyer books, the Remo Williams series. I got some books under that one, and I started watching what the publishers were doing. Like, print on demand is a thing now, and I wouldn't at the time. I said I won't publish my own stuff, but wouldn't it be cool to just do an anthology and just because I had this idea at the time for an anthology called Gods and Services.
Right.
It's one of those things where like I can't make a story called that, but I know what the idea is. The idea is it's this little Brigadoon like pop-up shop that hey, this wasn't here yesterday. And how did they squeeze it in between those two stores? I thought they were all right next to each other. And you go in, and it's this Needful Things junk store kind of place.
Yeah.
And you buy a tchotchke, and you walk out, and you don't know that there's a god attached to it.
Right.
And now you've made a monetary offering, and this god is now obligated to help you.
It reminds me of the Friday the 13th TV series. Remember that?
I like that. Yeah. I was actually inspired by the Tony Randall Burl Ives movie, The Brass Bottle, where Tony Randall gets this big brass bottle and he polishes it up, and Burl Ives pops out. He's a genie, and the genie's like, "Hey, you let me out. It's my job to make your life better." And all he's doing is making his life worse by doing what he thinks will make it better. And that was what I wanted the theme of these stories to be. And the whole sign was, a letterboard sign on the window said goods and services, but one of the O's had fallen out and was kind of like stuck in the bottom of the sign. So that was Gods and Services, which was truth in advertising.
That's pretty cool.
We did that, and it was a ton of fun. I'm like, I can do this. So we did The Devil You Know, The Devil You Know Better, The Monsters Next Door. We're gonna do The Devil You Know Best, and then we'll move into The Monsters Across the Street. And it's interesting. It's like the Gods and Services was 10 stories, and it was like pulling teeth. 6 months of an open window of reading, because we were nobody. We hadn't come from anywhere. Nobody wanted to trust us. I knew some people through doing reviews on multiple websites who were authors with Simon and Schuster, had been published with Scholastic, and I'm like, hey, that interview we did, hey, would you like to help out like an up-and-coming publisher who has like very little money to pay you for this? And they said yes. So that we published, we paid what we said we would pay, and then I said, you know what, I want to do The Devil You Know. Let's do that. So we said, it took forever to get stories last time. Instead of a 3-month window, let's give it a 4-month window for stories. Well, a funny thing happens if you're already published a book and you paid everybody. Suddenly people realize, oh, you really do publish books. You're not the new person, and you paid people. We had 175 submissions for The Devil You Know. And it was supposed to be a 10-story book like the last one. Had to be 20. There were too many good things to kick out. I had to, my own money, paying with this. And I was like, well, that was just too good. And then I saw, I looked at the cover, and it was like, the devil fist holding up the contract. I'm like, well, what if he held up 2 fingers while he was holding that same contract? I got the guys to do the same cover. I said, we have The Devil You Know Better. And immediately I knew we were going to do The Devil You Know Best. So I'm like, this is 3 books. And the funny thing about it is that the whole reason I did The Devil You Know, period, was because I had a short story that I hadn't finished called The Devil You Know. I'm like, I'll do an anthology and I'll put my own story in it. And I didn't get it finished. I didn't have time. I didn't get it finished for the second book. The Devil You Know Best will have my story in it, by hook or by crook. I'm only taking 19 stories. I'm going to save $25 and pay myself one of them.
It's like, you think like with anthologies, do you think anthologies are is something that's like getting bigger and bigger as a for client base, or for readers, or do you think it's because it's easier to do?
It's both. It's both, and they're cyclical. I mean, I think the anthology is coming back because it's a big book, but there's a lot of stories in it, and you don't have to pick up a book like this and just start off with page 1 and start carrying your way through. You can say thumb through it. I like that word.
This
look, this Diana Olney's got the dead girl
Yeah.
next door in there. I know her. I'm going to read her story. Or you flip through it and you're like, oh, what is this? Oh, Good Neighborhood by Robert Allen Lupton. This looks interesting. What are those girls up to? Maybe I'll sit there and read that one. Or you
Yeah.
look at the table of contents and you're like, I'm really just kind of going to the crapper. I'll be gone for 5 minutes. That one's
That's
17
it.
pages. I can finish that in 7. I can do
That's
this in
it,
sitting.
right? So that's what I was thinking. Like you mentioned, needful things. Like I grew up on, and I've got a whole ton of Stephen King there, and with I got gifted the whole Dark Tower, right? The entire lot. I just got gifted because of passing, and I remember reading different seasons and stuff like that. If I remember, that's another one of his, isn't it? But needful things. So in the middle of the night, I'm like, time to go to bed. So I don't want to be reading a big long story, but I do want to read a story before I go to bed. So you get to choose what I
Dolan's
do.
Cadillac.
Exactly. So the other thing is with this book is that you can actually see a picture, right? A comic image there, and you can actually go, I get an idea of what could be about. And like you mentioned, then I would want to read it. I might not know anybody who's written that, but that I find that interesting because then I go, oh, not only is it a short story, but it's also got something here in my head, I can look at visually and say, refer to. And that's just really cool. I think that's something that's missing from anthologies, which you guys have
and it used to be in
got.
comics. You used to have
Right.
anthology comics, and the Golden Age books were thick. They were over 80 pages. You got 30 stories in them. It was an amazing trip.
Yeah.
George is
So
only
I just want
halfway
to
kidding.
I want to put this up. We're going to do the biggest anthology the world has ever seen. The spine will be 6 feet thick. The pages have 6-point type, and there are 1,000 authors, and no Dudley Moore.
Yes, he's half joking because the book I didn't bring out, that we did for sort of a trial balloon, with the ideas we had. We did the Brothers Grimm, the complete fairy tales, and we're like, we gave each story its own opening full page illustration, and that was going to be it. And then George said, but why don't we spot illustrate throughout the story? So now well, okay, we'll put like a marginal picture in it. That's what he said. He said, do like those Sergio Aragones marginals. We'll put those in there. Those started to grow into, let's put a whole page of, interacting with the text, make the text wrap around this image, get a nice flow going. We ended up with a 540-page hardcover, the size of a family Bible, and the spine is literally as thick as your hand can hold it.
Wow.
It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, but it's hardcover and it's pricey. It's like $75 US for this thing. Like, no, we got to do it. I don't have that book in my hand. I gave that book to my son, George. I wish I could show you that book, because it's beautiful. It's coming up on Amazon. We just did a softcover version of it in a 5x9 format. It's going to be thick, but it's going to be the original hardcover is square, so it's 8.5 by 8.5. I mean, it's literally beat somebody over the head with it, and it's a deadly weapon. The paperback's going to be more affordable. I will have the hardcover will always be available on Amazon. I'm going to take it to conventions, and because conventions are like, hey, look, softcover books right here. Of course, for the discerning buyer, we have this hardcover back here that's huge.
Give me 1 second. I want to show you something. Come here, you. So talking about hardcovers, right? And these are heavy, right? So
yes.
And I'm wearing this, and I'm trying not to have it on my left hand because I hurt my wrist a couple of weeks ago, and it still isn't right. So this is from San Diego Comic-Con, and look at that. And I never went to San Diego Comic-Con. I paid $300 New Zealand for both of these, Volume 1 and Volume 2, signed, right? And I haven't read them because I'm worried that the signature's coming off. That
Exactly.
you know, so I always
Copy.
read the digital, right?
Yeah.
But like,
It's,
yeah,
hey, Aru, is it okay if I send George the link
I'll bring
for
him
the
on.
streamer?
Oh yeah. I don't know how long we're up to 2 hours, but if you want to carry on, man, I'm happy to carry on.
He's got the he has his own copy of the Grimm fairy tale book, and
yeah, bring him on.
You've got to see it.
God, that's heavy. Didn't realize how
Send you
heavy
the link,
that was.
George.
All right, so we got another guest, and he's got a weird looking thing on the cover.
Greetings, everybody.
Hey, George. Oh, that's who it is. Joking.
All right. Let me,
Don't get a hernia picking that book up, George.
Get ready.
Hold on.
Oh, by the
Give
way,
me one sec. Give me one sec.
Inception.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're incepting the book, everybody.
Within the world, right? That's cool.
So yeah, that's I mean, look at show.
Oh,
okay,
wow.
that is a wraparound hardcover, by the way. There's the past with the Brothers Grimm with the candelabra, and there's the present, the modern day girls with.
Hold it down a bit, George.
Hold it down just a little bit. You're off top of the screen.
Yeah. Come down a bit more. There we go. Can you open I don't want to damage the book, but can you open it so we can like a sandwich, so we can, or not sandwich, but like open on the so we can see the entire
not that page, George,
of the art like the actual cover.
He's trying to get the camera to focus. I get it.
Yeah, there we go. It's done.
You're in. Yeah. Okay. Now show us.
No. The actual cover.
Oh,
you got it's a wraparound.
Close the book. Flip the book over, George. Flip the book over so we can see back and front.
I wonder if he's like can't hear us.
He probably has. He
can't hear us. Yeah.
No. Now open it, but show the cover. Hang on.
Yeah, put the mic back on. I mean the head, like the sound back on.
Okay.
There you go. So open it so we can see the entire cover, the wraparound.
Now flip the book over top. Show both sides of the cover, George. So you see the full length of it.
There we go. Awesome. Look at that. So this is like the complete, right? So now I want to see the inside. Can you show us the inside?
Yeah, that's the original 62 stories. And like I said, each story began with a full page illustration from something from the story. Everything was done in a pre-Raphaelite art style. George had the idea to throw in ornate drop caps, and cornice pieces. So that helped that out.
It reminds me of the olden like 1900s and 1800s style of.
That's what we were aiming for. Oh, here's the story of Snowdrop, also known as Snow White. Look at that poison apple.
Yeah. That is awesome. Who's the artist on this, or are they different artists?
He's holding the book.
Okay, so George is the artist on this.
Yes. George did all the artwork on this.
Yeah, I will show it off. Yeah, I guess see why you're saying I'll show it off, right? Yeah. That is so cool.
Flip some more
and
numbers.
It's like, it's kind of like I don't want to like downplay it, but something like you'd want to as a grandparent, right?
That's what we want to be.
You want to gift to your your 5-year-old, or and go, this is something you can keep for the rest of your life as you grow up and read, and then pass it on to your grandchildren, or to your kids, read to them bedtime stories and so on. And it's just so beautiful.
Exactly. And it's the original text. I mean, it's obviously the original text was in German. This is the original English translation.
Yeah.
But and it's weird. The Grimm
I grew up on all this, I don't know which kid hasn't, but here's me, New Zealand Indian, right? Michael from Fiji. I grew up on these stories, right? And I love it. And I think, the setting and everything, the joy, Little Red Riding Hood.
A lot of fear and terror and grisliness.
Oh,
I mean, in Little Red Riding Hood, who knew there were 2 wolves? There were
right.
There were two
Wow.
chapters with a different wolf each. And you know, there's the robber bridegroom is this story about cannibals, and this woman, you know, outs them at her wedding by showing the severed finger with a ring on it that she saved off the floor. Like,
Yeah.
this will give children nightmares.
Yeah, I can see why they like over time like mellowed it out a bit. But I mean, you know, they were to teach, they were there to teach kids, you know, like don't, you know, I almost think of like, what's it, Little Red Riding Hood is like, don't talk to strangers, right?
Yeah.
Don't
Wolves
talk to
will eat.
strangers, kids. Yeah, you know, they're like sheep, you know, wolves in sheep's clothing. You know, they're not there. You know,
Don't tear things off of other people's houses. They'll come out and kill you.
yeah. What is that? That's Hansel and Gretel, right?
Exactly. So, like I said, 540 pages, over 300 full color illustrations throughout this thing. This was a chore, but
Yeah.
I was so proud of it when it was done. Not a single
So-
piece of artwork in there is wasted that I'm like, yeah, we could have done without that.
So, talking about like doing something like this, did you have to buy the rights to this to the stories? Licensing?
No,
What's
that's
the deal?
exactly why we did this as a trial balloon, because the Brothers Grimm is public domain. The
Wow.
text already existed, didn't have to pay anybody. So we're like, you know, let's just see what kind of a quality book we can make with something that we don't have to pay for.
Thank you, George. Really appreciate that. And
Thanks, George.
beautiful artwork. What a wonderful book. I mean, like something like that is a gift. It's like giving your family the first Bible, right?
Yeah,
You know, like
exactly.
if you're in religious, right thing.
It's
But, like,
not the kind
this-
of book you're just going to read every night in bed and, you know, dog ear
Yeah.
the pages and do that.
Mm.
It's something to collect and keep sight. And
Thank you,
it's on
Georgie.
Amazon.
Yeah. So I mean, like the complete Brothers Grimm from Critical Blast, right?
Exactly. You had to search the Critical Blast part of it with the title
Yeah.
because everybody's got a Brothers Grimm book out.
Yeah, and I didn't realize it was all public domain. So, like, I mean, I guess we could make our own Snow White and make it better now. You know,
We
it's
can.
a comic book, and I would love to see that, like, where it's actually original. You know,
All
maybe
you have
guys
to do
put it
is not
together.
let her wear a yellow dress, because if she looks
Oh.
like
So-
like the Disney one,
Is it only because of the yellow dress that it's Disney?
she can't look like the Disney one. She can't have the blue tunic with the yellow fluffy things. Just put her
Yeah.
in something completely different. And you know, if you want to go original,
Mm.
you know when Snow White became the fairest of them all, according to the Grimms, and when she had reached the age of 7 years old.
Right.
That's why the character that I put in that first full-size painting is this little pale-skinned girl, because like
Mm.
she was more beautiful than the queen, and she was 7. Like, whoa, okay, Grimm's went there.
Yeah, it was like really, you know, and then like to just wait for her to grow older, and then she gets rid of her. Like I just watched the first hour of Snow White, the original Disney animated thing, and I loved it. Like I was like, because they're talking about this and like, you know, with all the hoo-ha that's going on, I was like, you know, I need to see this. Am
Yeah,
I
go see
missing
this.
something? Am I missing something? And I'm like, no, it's still the same. I was thinking in my head when I saw it decades ago, right? And they are missing something. I'm not the one who's missing something. They're the ones who are missing something. And I was like,
Exactly.
yeah, I don't, you know, you guys have lost every plot that you can think of about the story. And hey,
Make
it's
it
German.
relevant. They
right?
say
It's
they want to make
German.
it relevant, but what they want to do is they want to make it relevant to them.
Not even to them, to nobody. They don't really get it. It's like it's a rotten apple, right? Like, okay,
Yeah.
look, here's a rotten apple. Like it, love it, you must eat it. It's like, yeah,
Well,
no, thanks. I'm not into rotten apples.
It's-
I like
it's-
I like the original fresh, right?
Yeah,
You know, what
so
was
they're
there?
operating under the same thing that I've said for years, which is, you know, if you give people a choice of 3 crap sandwiches, they will have a favorite,
Yeah,
because people will, you know, the mass audience will consume. They'll go see,
Yeah.
you know, Star Wars prequels made money.
yep.
Somebody bought tickets.
And when you keep buying tickets, like what's like I put up a clip the other day of the critic, right, where he goes, if the movie stinks, don't watch it, right? If it's got a sequel, watch the original, right? Kind of thing. It's like, yeah, as long as if the movie stinks and if you watch it, they will make more. So if you hate watch it, they'll make more, right? So just don't watch it. And yeah, I think I just you know it's just crazy. Like I just think like whenever they say modernizing, what they mean is they're making rubbish and they want you to have rubbish.
It's the
Like
same thing, like,
yeah,
you know, we've got to modernize Superman because there's nothing we can do with Superman. It's unrelatable. Like, you can't possibly make Superman unrelatable.
yeah.
All you can do is ruin him by trying to change him to what you think.
I'm actually a guy who didn't like Superman for years, right? I mean, I was a kid. I was into it, and then like as a comic book collector, didn't read Superman for ages, and then I started watching Smallville. Had my missus. I was married at the time, and we just lie in bed and watch Smallville, right? And I started liking the character. I started realizing that there was this humanity to the character, and that he was just this guy, from a small town, right? And made me feel like, yeah, a bit of affirmity, whatever, towards him. And then after it, I was like, I really like this character. I really, really enjoy this character. And now I'm reading the comics, and now I've got own comics and so on of it, and I have toys of him, right? Which prior to that, didn't care for it. The only thing I'd read before that was The Life and Death of Superman, right? The novel that was based on the series, and
which he wasn't in for a whole lot of.
yeah. But it was such a good story, and it felt really, really cool. And that sort of gave me that and like Greg Rucka's novelization of the Earthquake. I always forget the name of that series. But
yeah, No Man's Land.
that's it. Those two are the ones that made me come to DC in 2004. Prior to that, I was all Marvel. And so those two books basically made me, I got into Batman because of that. Even though I'd watched Batman movies, but that book made me understand Batman's mind. And I think anybody who wants to really understand who Batman is should read that book.
No Man's Land helped you understand who a lot of the characters were. But I will say,
Yeah.
if you want to get a brief read, a fun read that captures who Superman is, get the John Byrne trade paperback of the Man of Steel when they rebooted everything after Crisis. John Byrne understood Superman.
I think I have that.
No Man's Land was like there was a one-page story in No Man's Land. It was the Penguin, and all you saw was his legs, and he's walking. You see, the umbrella tap tap tap. He's walking, and there's somebody trapped under something. He's like, they're like, help me. He's like, what do you do? I'm a teacher. Walk, 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 walk. Help me. What do you do? I'm an accountant. You know how to hide money? What? Do you know how to hide money? Yes. Okay. You work for me now. Walk, walk, walk. What do you do? I make ice cream. Walk, 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 walk. He was like picking and choosing who he was going to say, but like that, that's not some squawking bird obsessed joke of a character. This is evil, pernicious, pragmatic villain.
Yeah. And I think that's also what's lost in modern comics is like that evil, right? The villain that is evil. I don't want sympathetic villains anymore. I want to, even if you have them, they still have to be evil. There has got to be a good versus evil, right? You don't want to have muddling.
Sometimes when it's interesting. I mean, when you realize when they did Lex Luthor as, hey, he's just trying to save the world from what he truly believes is an alien invasion. Exactly. He's just cracked about it. But when you try to make Cruella de Vil sympathetic just because she wants to kill puppies, no.
Yeah.
You can't sympathize with a puppy killer.
Killing animals is okay. What? Yeah. So, apart from novels, right? Like not novels, but like short stories and anthologies and stuff. Are you like? And then you've got these 3 comics coming out. is there more? Like, are you working with other people to do more comics, publishing and stuff like that on them, or are you looking at yourself being a comic creator?
Well,
And
I'm always working with more people to distribute their comics.
Right.
I haven't really worked with anybody to publish their comics yet. That's kind of what our trial balloons are going to present. It's like, look, we can do it. This is the cost. We can make this happen. And I think we will. I've got a couple other novels that I'm supposed to be working on. They always keep falling to the side, but I've got 2 more Destroyer novels that I'm supposed to be finishing up, and I can't get my head around how to split them the way I need to split them. They will happen.
So, do you like? I mean, you must at least collect comics, right? As yourself, but like,
I've got 25 long boxes in a basement in St. Louis.
Yeah, I was thinking like I will look at everybody that's around, like, and I'm thinking, because like you said, you lost comics, and I'm the same. I lost like a whole bunch of my
30 years ago. Yeah. Well, 1990s, you didn't lose anything. Trust me.
Oh, no,
I got married 30 years ago.
The Claremont, the whole Nightbreed, I think
that was fun. That was a good read.
That whole like that series of stuff, like that was coming.
I'm talking about
Claremont stuff.
I sold off to pay bills when I first got married 30 years ago. I sold off first Punisher and Spider-Man, Death of Gwen Stacy and Spider-Man, first Wolverine and Incredible Hulk, all 3 appearances. Yellow suited Daredevil comics. That's the stuff I lost.
Yeah. And now you could now you could buy a house with them if you want.
Exactly. Instead of an electric bill, it could have been a house. So I've got very few. I still got some of my very, very old comics. Probably because I put them in a place where I couldn't sell them. I put them in frames, and I mean like serious frames, not go to Walmart and slip it down the back frame. I've got Green Lantern number 40, which is the very first mention of why the multiverse exists in the DC universe, how it exists. It's a classic cover. It's got Hal Jordan and Alan Scott fighting each other in front of the Guardians of Oa. And then I've got.
I'm trying to remember if I've seen that cover.
Oh, I think it's a Gil Broom or a John Broom cover. It's beautiful. It's number 40, volume 1, number 40. I've got the Flash number, I want to say 139, but I'm sure I'm missing it. But it's the first appearance of the Reverse Flash, where he finds the yellow costume guy, and they're doing that. And then in one double-sized frame, I have the first appearance of Bat-Girl Betty Kane in her little red mini dress, and Barbara Gordon Batgirl, the $1 million debut of Batgirl, side by side with a divider mat over the top of them, like just first appearance of both Batgirls.
Wow.
I've ended up with a Batgirl collection by accident because I went to cons 30 years ago, and it's like, oh, you're the artist on this thing. Yeah, what do you want me to draw you? Just $20. I'm like, and I wanted him to draw someone he didn't draw before. Normally, I just want to see how he. So I just said Batgirl, and before I left the con, I had 2 pictures of Batgirl. I'm like, well, now it's a work. Now it's a body of work. So I just had the Frame Brothers deliver this today. They do this book called starring Sonia Devereaux, who's a B-movie actress. It's in a film right now because I haven't taken it out of the film, so it's a little fuzzy.
So you're just collecting Batgirl art? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm collecting Batgirl art now. It's become a thing.
Awesome.
I was fortunate enough to actually have 2.
That is,
I've got 2 photos of Yvonne Craig, signed by Yvonne Craig in her Batgirl costume, and one of them is on the wall behind me. It's treasured because it's the trifecta. It was all 3 of the main characters from the TV series, Adam West, Burt Ward, and Yvonne, and all 3 of them have signed it. I'm like, yes.
Oh wow,
geek holy grail achieved.
There's something I find really like awesome about being like living and being in America is that you have so many conventions that you can go to and see so many people. And one of the saddest things, like especially comic book people, right? And the saddest thing is this year we don't get it in Auckland. Like that's something that I'm close to, so I can get to go to see comic book people. Like I've met Greg Rucker, right? And I got to ask Greg Rucker some questions. I also got to meet Peter David and stuff like that. But like I noticed like slowly over the years that comic book personalities are not being as popular at conventions as they were.
Yeah,
But
the
this year,
conventions are celebrity conventions now.
yeah, and then it's kind of sad because I think these are the guys who actually created the stuff that these guys get to fake being in, right? They fake acting and so forth, and get millions for based off
Exactly.
characters that like the creators aren't getting that same amount of money. Yeah.
1989 and 1990. I'm going to the Chicago Comic-Con when it was a Comic-Con, not a Wizard World with celebrities. It was Comic-Con. And it was like you walk into the main floor and hanging from the ceiling were the signs for DC, Marvel, Archie.
Yeah.
And I just walked up to the table and started talking to Dick Giordano, Denny O'Neil, Dick Sprang. I have these hardcover books that I've had for decades now. The greatest Batman stories ever told and the greatest Joker stories ever told.
Yeah.
And the inside cover of that reads like a funeral book because I had it signed by Dick Giordano, Denny O'Neil, Dick Sprang, Sheldon Moldoff. Sheldon Moldoff was at a Comic-Con. And for those who don't know who Sheldon Moldoff was, he's the guy who created Green Lantern. The Alan Scott Green Lantern, Golden Age guy. And I'm just walking around the con and I kind of duck out of the crowd into this little side room here because I'm like, I got to put my bag down. I'm hot. And I put it down and I turn around and sitting inside the door at this short little table, this elderly man and his wife. And there's this huge canvas painting of Alan Scott. I'm like, that's gorgeous. It's beautiful. My favorite. And I look down and I see there's his nameplate. Sheldon. Nobody's in the room with him. It wasn't even announced that he was there. Yeah. And this is at the time when like DC was just launching another Golden Age looking Justice Society book. I'm like,
yeah,
you're still doing art. Why didn't they get you to come do the art for the book? And his little wife just leans in, pushes her glasses. Would you go tell DC that for us, please? And I said, I will, and I did.
Yeah.
I miss those days.
Yeah, I mean, like, I was just when you said that, I was just thinking, like, it reminded me of like, the year, like, I got to see Derek Robertson.
Yeah.
Right. And I got that because I love this character, Transmetropolitan Spider Jerusalem. I actually had a friend. Hold on, I was actually looking for my dad's photo today, like to share on, and I found it's going to be weird. I don't think I'm going to have it, but like I actually had a friend who I just mentioned about the airbrush, who actually airbrushed me, like, and painted me up to look like with the tattoos and stuff for the opening of the thing, like for 1 year celebration of that. And like even her daughter, right, even made me the glasses, who actually graduated, right, Zoe, out of paper and cellophane that they had, and I was wearing it as a cosplay. But this is what I miss. I miss comic people coming to shows in New Zealand, and we get to see them. I know it's costly. Like I know how costly it can be when you're traveling and stuff. But but when you've got someone like Derek Robertson, and you've got third season maybe of The Boys coming out, and I'm a purist when it comes to The Boys. I have not watched the TV show, and I'll never will. Right? I'll probably watch it as I'm on my on my deathbed or something, but I will never watch it because even though I love Carl Urban, he's a Kiwi, right? And he is also, Judge Dredd, who I've loved since I was a kid, right?
Yes.
But I will not watch The Boys because I want one thing, as a comic thing that
You want it
stays
unsullied.
with me is mine. And yeah, unsullied, right? The unsullied, And so I actually rocked up to Derek. Like I talked to him about 5 years earlier or 4 years earlier online. And I said, listen, and whenever you come to New Zealand, I will come to you and I'll be the guy with the cane, right? Limping up with a box, right? And this is in 2010, 2011. And I heard he was coming. And I rocked up to him with a box of the boys and Transmat. And I said, we talked about this, so I'm here. And he's just there, goes, signs it away. Right? Yeah. And he opens up the boys' hardcover and does a little, sketch in it. Didn't cost anything.
The extra mile.
Yeah, didn't cost anything. Had the, the first volume hardcover, had like about 20 issues of that I had been able to get. Like
that's a creator who recognizes and values the fans.
Yeah.
All of this, and I'm not saying that Neil Gaiman, who I'm getting ready to talk
about. Oh,
dude,
don't even mention Neil Gaiman. I freaking hate that guy.
But that's where I started noticing it. Is when I went to the first convention that Neil Gaiman was there. Suddenly it was, you need to have a ticket to get in line. You can only have 3 items. I'm like, wait, what? Convention year before, and I told this story dozens of times. I'm standing in line for Peter David to sign a handful of Hulk comics and my Return of the Swamp Thing novelization, which is very, very good. Read the book, don't watch the movie. And there's a guy in front of me, and he's mentally handicapped. He just is. Not Down syndrome. Something's happened to him. He was born that way. Holding hands with his much older father, who's being very kind. And I mean, he's got a little red wagon with a Empire State Building of Hulk in it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this might not go well.
Yeah.
And Peter David takes that entire stack, puts it on the table, signs the first 5 copies, puts them aside, takes the next person in line, signs the next 5 copies, takes the next person in line. And he signed every damn one of those books. And I stayed there to watch it because I'm like, I just can't believe what I'm seeing here.
Yeah.
This is fan service from not like manga fan service. This is people who appreciate their readers. I think he's the same guy who like had a beat up copy of Hulk and stood and said, "This is what your comics are supposed to look like."
Yeah.
You're supposed to read them.
Yeah. And I think I mean, I've gone away from reading comics now to just collecting toys because of that whole situation where, when they start attacking the fans. And I'm like, I'd rather buy the toys, right? Because they don't answer back to me. They don't tell me, they're there. I enjoy them and I collect them more than I do. I spend more money on this stuff now than I do on comics, which is sad because I used to love that stuff. And, and I used to, like yourself, like when I was working at 16, 17 years old, I put aside, I'd only get $130, $60 a week. So $60 would just go towards comics because I paid my $90 to my uncle, because I used to live with my uncle, and paid for my food, whatever spare. And then I'd have $20 whatever for alcohol. And then I'd be comics and music. That was it for 30 odd years of my life almost, But we've we can get deeper into it, but
I take my old toys and I turn them into functionally. This was a Burger King cup when they did the
I
series.
collect cups. Yeah, that's awesome.
And I've just turned it into a tool holder. But yeah, this was like, I forget, this was early 80s. They had a Superman, they had a Wonder Woman, they had a Batman, and I think the 4th one was Darkseid.
Right. That is such a cool thing. I didn't realize they actually had figures on them. Like, I think this, like, I mean, we do a toy unboxing stuff and kind of like what toys have arrived of the week. So this arrived last week and from Singapore, right? So we had a whole bunch of stuff that we'd, like buying stuff of other people from New Zealand, right? And then also buying, through other people from another country and stuff like that. So I think that's why I love, toys, and that's why I want to get my own done in the future.
I like getting the fast food ones because it's like, if you go to buy a collectible at the store, you pay a collectible price and you're going to set it aside and nobody's going to play with it. You get these
Yeah.
fast food toys, everyone's going to open that thing up and play with it. Yeah, exactly. And there'll be very few of them left.
I got, this was part of this other deal I did with this gentleman who had this, and these were like only a couple bucks for a whole set. And I was like,
Exactly.
I kind of like it. I didn't even know what they were at the time. I was just like, yep, I'll get it. But yeah, I think fast food ones, like you said, you can play and stuff, and the other ones you just display and make them look good or whatever, pose them some other way in a diorama.
Exactly. I came into toys at a time when they didn't have different versions of every single character out there. So,
Right.
so I was going to the bargain bins and the clearance aisles, and I was getting like Batman and Robin's Poison Ivy characters, the Uma Thurman, because guess what? I was basic female figure form, and I was like shaving them down and repainting them into Psylocke. I was my wife at the time. She walked in. I'm holding onto the boot of an action figure with his head submerged in a pot of boiling water, and she's like, "Why are you boiling your toys?" I was like, "So I can do this," and I pull it out and I grab the head. It goes right off, super easy, barely an inconvenience. And I was like, because I want this head on this body. And I had all these garage. I've got the entire Starman line garage kit at home. All the when the Starman story came out from James Robinson rather. So I was like, I grabbed the Batman and I cut the ears off, and then I shaved a piece of plastic and made a fin, and I made I don't know if you're familiar with that Starman series or not, but there was like a dead Starman, which was his older brother David with the rotted cape, and I had a Spectre cape with holes in it. And
I wanted to show you something because you're talking about that, because you're into dioramas and stuff and doing customization. I have a friend who I buy stuff from and who's actually done something. Let's see, is that on? Right. So
Grendel.
Yeah,
that's fantastic.
It's let me. I'm actually shouldn't be doing. Where are we here? There we go. Let's put that there. That way's better. Don't want to like give him his name away, but like, so this
I
is. I
love the Grendel mask.
This is customized, right? So there were 2 of these up for sale, and I wanted to buy them, and I thought he was going to buy them, and he ended up not buying them, and because that's custom. I mean, on auction. And I'd commit myself to something else, and and so I didn't have the money or whatever that was going to go, and so we both lost out. But he then went and customized it. So let me find out what he's saying. I'm going to take that. Like,
it looks like he put Super Sculpey around the ankles to come up with the Captain America boots.
Yeah. So I'm going to read out what he did with it, because I don't. It's probably. Where are you? Here we are.
See, DC Direct took all the fun out of this because they're like, yeah, we'll just put everybody out as a toy, whether it sells or not. I'm like, yeah, but now that it's there, it's no fun to make my Black Canary figure anymore.
Right.
And Super Sculpey a jacket onto her.
So this is what he's done. So he goes, seen a Grendel Hunter Rose figure for sale online, because that's what we were looking at. And it wasn't too expensive. It was a very old figure with greatly outdated articulation. So I decided to make one of my own. Long shot body, Deadpool head and swords, white vision hands, random feet from my photo box. Filled the bottom of the head with putty because it was sitting too low, then drilled a peg hole. Also filled the eyes with putty, then dremeled till it was the way I wanted. Then I made the eyes out of water slide decals, but I don't have a printer, so I had to make it by hand and painted over it after it was in place. Apart from the issues I had to fix, I'm pretty glad with the final result. So,
it looks great. I mean, I would have started with like a Spider-Man body, because the Hunter Rose Grendel was a real slender character, but you would see these not no name characters, but like not as pretty characters, and everyone's passing them by, but I'm like looking at them like, oh, do you know what I can do with them?
Yeah,
I got So I bought they had the Fantastic Four figures, the big, like big as a Barbie doll, solid plastic, very little articulation to them. And I bought a Johnny Storm character, There's not even the Human Torch. It's Johnny Storm. Nobody wanted that. But I turned that into Ozymandias. And then I grabbed the
Right.
Silver Surfer, and that was easy peasy to turn into the Dr. Manhattan. And then I grabbed another, I can't remember who it was now. But I made a Rorschach out of it, and I was like, it was a Silver Surfer, so like I had to put pants on the thing. I super sculpted all the way down the legs and put creases on the. Yeah, but see, now they came out with it, and I don't have to have it. And but I was like, I took a coat, an overcoat off of an oversized Gambit, and slipped that onto it. It was fun to find out how you could make your character out of existing characters. And now it's just like, if I want a Rorschach character, spend $40, and there he is. I got one.
Yeah, see, I'm that sort of person. I'll just go buy it because I don't have the time and I don't have the, I think about my own characters that way. So I'll buy a doll, and then my mum, because I do sewing every now and then because I learned how to sew when I was a kid using a sewing machine. So I said, oh, I'm after a sewing machine. So mum goes, oh, get one for you. So she found one, right, for $20 or something from a friend. And now I have a sewing machine, but I had bought a doll, a China doll, right? So the head's China, arms are China, but the rest is fabric.
Oh,
and so I thought what I would do is I'll go and buy fabric. So my own character, I can dress her up as my own character after I make the clothing out myself.
Yeah.
That when it comes to my own characters, I can think that way. But when it comes to guys like this, right? I can't think like that. And I don't have that mentality, but like Carlos right there, he does, and he does a lot of that. And I'm like, I'm amazed by that, right? I'm amazed by you guys. Yeah.
The most fun I had doing it, there was a little boy lived next door to us where we were at this one place, and he was into comics. He was he created his own comics character. It was Cosmo, and he had drawn him up. And I had a buddy who was into indie comics and was a really good artist. I was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. So we went out and we bought a basic action figure, and instead of just ripping it open, and we very carefully sliced the thing off of the bubble off the card, and then we fixed the card back up, made it all white on both sides, and then he drew the character onto the card, and drew the character onto the back of the card in another fashion. It was all colored and everything. Meanwhile, I'm taking the character figure and I'm turning it into Cosmo and doing everything to it. And we put it back in there. We glued it back on, and we wrapped it up for his birthday and took it over next door. And his parents knew what was going on, and just the look on his face when he opened that up and just saw, he's like, "Oh, it's an action. It's Cosmo. It's my character." Is worth every hour we spent on that thing.
Yeah, I think that's something us as adults, like, really, really, as fans of what we love, are able to do, which is pass on the joy, right? And I think when you and that not that, and I think that's the other side of that, is the fact that we wanted that joy when we were that age, so we were able to do the same. And I'm like that with like toys, like if I've just bought a couple of like little cars, and it's not something I just bought it for the sake of buying it. If I see somebody's kids just being a bit off, I go, hey man, have a toy, right? That they can play around with, or they're a bit upset at the grocery shop, whatever. Just sit there and play. It'll keep them quiet and stuff. But now they get to have something, to play with and distract them. And I think, like, if I was in that case, I would love that, and so you're just passing that on. And I think this is a great thing about being creatives as well, that you can actually create something for others, and then actually have something that lives longer than you do. And I think it's kind of like the joy of it all. I'm not thinking about like, I'm going to do a comic now. I'm hoping this comic will be around for 20, 30 years, right? For the next generation. And that is looked after by my family and so on, or whoever's got,
I want to be, I want to create a comic that my grandchildren have to sue the publisher to get the rights back to.
Yeah. I think rather than that, I'm like, I own everything, so there's no suing my publisher, And I think that's something that like professional creatives, you know, or I guess to say the mainstream comic people are realizing is like, let's just do our own thing.
Yeah.
You know, when they should have been doing their own thing for a while on the side, right? Just creating their own thing.
Late.
Yeah. But it's too late for some now because of that. And that's and then you talked about, just came to my mind, you know, gosh, I forgot the name of, but like the creator of, you know, Green Lantern. You know, you've got
Children Mulder.
yeah, she's there going tell Disney that. It's like DC that. It's like DC should be approaching them, you know? It's like, it's just, yeah. And not only that, but you know, if I was him, I would have been just doing my own thing on the side, right? All that time I was doing whatever. I'd always, and I think that we would have had so many great books from these professionals if they kept doing something for themselves on the side, and they would be known for that, you know, rather than just that one thing. They'll be known for so many. That's the same thing I think about George Lucas right now. It's like, why aren't you doing other stuff? Why aren't you putting all those billions you've got into other stuff as well, right? Propping up other creators. Why aren't you finding a filmmaker who's also doing something, going, hey, let's work together and do that? An indie guy, right? You know, and I think it's just the one thing, and you're going to moan for the rest of your life over the one thing you sold off, right? Rather than going, you know, I'm more than that one thing. Sure, I got that, and that's where I come in. I'm like, I'm more than that one thing. I'm more than Incredible. You know, I'm into sci-fi, I'm into horror, and I'm creating that. And I think that's the same thing with you. I see here is like, you're more than that publisher. You're like bringing creatives together and doing so much amazing thing with Critical Blast, which I wasn't aware of until today, more of, right? Because I've watched your podcast and stuff, and they're just great. And I think, you know, it's just amazing what you've done. And I'm sure everybody that you're working with is appreciative of that as well. So, you know, we've passed the 2 hours I promised you, you know, committed you to, but like, thank you so much, man. I don't want to take much more of your time, but
it's been a
really
pleasure being on
it.
here talking about all of this stuff. And, you know, we could probably go on and on and on.
Yeah.
Just like, you know, be thankful that my comics are in St. Louis, because been plenty of times, it early on in the podcast, it used to be a thing where people would say, I remember I had this, you know, this one comic, very obscure title, and I just like, this one? And it was like, it was always within arm's reach. No matter what somebody was talking about, I had it right there.
Yeah.
It became like a meme almost.
Well, it's like toy, right? I can go, yeah, look, you know, and it's kind of,
but they'd be like, you know, oh, remember that one book that Mike W. Barr wrote, the Batman special where they introduced Wrath? I'm like, yeah, you mean this one right here? It was just right there. But speaking of which, and cons and everything, I am going to a Little Rock, Arkansas convention next Saturday. Only going one day. I'm going to. I bit the bullet. I never bite the celebrity bullet picture, but it's William
you want to
Shatner.
see someone, right?
It's William Shatner. Yeah. So I spent the money.
What do you mean?
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Oops, his gun fell out. But
I spent the money to get the picture with William Shatner.
Yeah, I have this. Hold on. Oh.
Pretty. Yeah.
The phone.
It's that one.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's numbered and everything. I've got all the things there. But like I'm a lifelong fan of since I came to New Zealand of you know, Star Trek. It's my one major fandom. It's the truest.
My photo opportunity is not with William Shatner. Yeah. My photo opportunity is with William Shatner and Jonathan Frakes in the same picture. So I'm getting both of them, but the almost more fulfilling thing, because that's a celebrity thing at a con. But Michael Golden is going to be there. I'm like, oh my God, Comics Guy is going to be there. So I've got my Batman special #1, my favorite Batman story ever written, and I'm going to have that get that sign, and that's going to mean
It's Michael Golden. I'm like, my brain, yeah.
he did some Daredevil comics. He didn't do a whole lot of stuff that I'm aware of, but the stuff he did do, it was different than anything else going on.
Artist or writer?
What's that?
Is he an artist or writer?
The artist. He's the artist. So
okay. So it's Michael Golden, is it?
Michael Golden. You look up Michael Golden Batman Special #1, and that's his art. And it was, some of it was very Patrick Nagel like, because it was the 80s. I mean, shoulder pads and stuff on. Kind of cool. But I'm looking forward to all of that next Saturday.
So this is a weekend long, like, is it 3-day or is it a week?
Yeah, it's a 3-day, but I'm only going for the 1 day.
Awesome. And this is you going as a as a convention
goer. I'm just going to walk the aisles and see what's there. I've gone to plenty of cons where I have a table. I'll be going to Archon in St. Louis at the end of October. Where I'll be doing like panels upon panels upon panels, and be taking
this one. This one you go like this. Why comics, like when I go to the Auckland one, I just want to be a spectator. I don't want to be selling anything. I don't want to be stuck at a table, and I want to be able to wander around. And I think you need that. I think sometimes you just need to get that, to go see your people you enjoy seeing.
Exactly.
And so thank you so much, RJ, and
thank you.
We'll catch up again. And I'd like to have you talk about, like, get you on on one of our Plunge-cast ones where we talk actually about creatives coming out and talking about their books that are about to release or go to Kickstarter and stuff like that, because that's specifically just for that, rather than where we have this one where we just talk and have discussions about life and things and experiences. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your extra time. And I had so much fun just chatting with you.
Same here.
Thank you so much. All right, guys. Check out Critical Blast and give them a sub, and like, seriously, they got some amazing creatives over there. It's like, it's just enjoyable. Also, wherever you are, thank you for joining us. All the best. Hug your loved ones, and thank you for joining us, and give us a sub. And also next week we have Paul Chato from Call Me Chato, from Canadian sketch comedy pop culture guy. So I'm looking forward to that as well. But thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it. And give us a sub, and give RJ a sub. Thank you, RJ.
Hit that bell for notifications. Bang that bell right there.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I always forget that one because we don't do self-promotion and news on that much, but thank you guys, and thank you, RJ. All right.